Great show planned for you today. We'll get into the big news, of course, on the 40 acres. We talked about it yesterday, hoping it was going to be some good news, more optimistic news. Not the case. CJ Baxter is out for the season, so we'll talk about that, of course, and what that means for the Texas Longhorns. We'll get into that. We'll go behind the burnt orange curtain. Also, we'll get into some other discussion about Texas football. We'll get into training camp news, notes, and nuggets from the Longhorns. But of course, the big topic of conversation will be about Cedric Baxter. Also, we'll get into the NFL a little bit. The Texans actually are going to be in action tomorrow for their preseason game. We do know that C.J. Stroud and some of the starters are going to play in that game coming up versus the Steelers. But the big topic of conversation is on the other side with the Steelers. Are they going to make the move? Right now, they seem to be the favorite to land Brandon Ayuk. Very un-Steeler-like, which we'll get to that too coming up. And also one of the most, I would say, one of the most polarizing quarterback competitions going on right now in the NFL. Also, the Pittsburgh Steelers are the topic of conversation there with Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. So we'll get into that too coming up. We'll also start exploring some of the division opponents for the Cowboys, for the Texans. I've been doing some research. We'll get into that. We'll talk about that too coming up on the show. We got your usual favorites, of course. We got the topic for the big fat poll of the day. We got Rod's Round of the Day. We also got Who Said That Off the Record. We also have all of your usual favorites coming up, so you don't want to miss any of that. Before we hit any of that, let's introduce you to the rest of the crew. He's one of the hardest working members of the ARN family. He's got a hustler spirit, period. Not sure what he's paid. Pretty damn sure the man is underpaid. Ain't no 401k for this hustler, and he's a hustle man of many talents. It's our friend, it's our co-host and neighbor. It is Patrick Davis, y'all. What's going on, Patrick? How you doing, brother?
Doing good. It made it to Thursday. It is we got more basketball on the docket today. We get the semifinals matchups for the Olympics. Always fun to watch. We have some good games. That France-Germany game is going to be really, really good and a lot of fun to watch because it'll be two teams that are you get the home team and a German team that's been playing really, really well. So it is going to be that's going to be a fun one to watch today. I always love having those games to watch during the day, and then you just watch like baseball or football tonight, even though that Patriots-Panthers matchup is going to be brutal.
Yeah, I guess you'll see, but you'll see. I mean,
this
is the week you'll see starters, right? This is the week if you want to watch some starters play.
But we know Bryce Young's not playing.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know why Bryce Young's not going to play at all. I guess I don't know if it's just being precautionary. Is he going to play at all in the preseason?
I don't. They haven't said yet.
This is usually the one. If you're going to do it, this is the one you play in. If he's not going to play in this one, then a lot of teams decide, they're not going to play at all.
I wonder if there's a little bit of Dave Canales being like, he's not quite ready yet, and I don't want to stick him out there and
then have him it's the same thing as last time. It looks the same.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the exact same as last year.
Let me try and work with him a little bit more, and maybe he'll pick it up here in the next couple of weeks, and then I'll stick him back out there, and then everyone will go, "Oh, Bryce Young's not going to be a flop. He's going to be pretty good, and we'll figure it out." That could
and for his own confidence too. For his own, confidence.
You don't want
him to go out there.
Especially not against a Patriots team that's also like you're playing against Patriots backup some and everything, and you throw a pick. You don't want to have that. But we will get to see the debut of Drake May, and we'll see if he looks any good.
That's true.
So that'll be fun to watch tonight. And then that Steelers and
I think you got the Lions and the Giants.
The Lions and the Giants also, who fought all week long. So
well, everybody's fighting. I mean, that happens every training camp. I don't know why this is a big deal. It happens every training. The NFL wants to be a family-friendly product, so that's why they don't want people fighting at training camp. That's the only reason they want to have they want kids out there and they don't want them fighting. But I don't think it's a big deal. It happens at every training camp. I feel like we had this discussion every training camp.
Yeah, I mean, it does. I think that there's, from the videos I saw of that, it was a little chippier than normal, but that also makes sense because the Lions are that's a Dan Campbell team.
Exactly.
And so
kneecaps.
Yeah, and so it makes more sense that he would walk in there and be like, "You're not going to get disrespected by the Giants, right? Don't get disrespected by them."
Well, I think it's also because now more joint practices than ever before.
Yeah,
we've never had this many joint practices. Now teams would rather break up training camp, practicing on their own for maybe 1 week, and then basically the rest of the time they're trying to do joint practice for at least 1 to 2 weeks of training camp. They try to get joint practices in. So I think that's a big reason why, you fight amongst your own teammates, but you're definitely more likely to fight somebody else who annoys you on an opposing team. So I think that's a big part of it too.
Yeah, that's it. I'll tell you who never fights with his teammates. My co-host, he's a proud alumni of DBU. Well, he's got more papers than Dunder Mifflin and watches more film than Siskel and Ebert. He is a new Rod, father of Austin Sports Radio, Mr. Rod Babers.
Yeah, I mean, I don't physically fight with my teammates, but my wife is a teammate, and we get into it every now and then. So technically, I guess I do get into it with teammates. That's just because everybody cares. It's called passion. That's what it is. All right, thank you for the intro, brother. As always, we'll have the topic for the big fat poll today that'll be coming up, and of course, we'll discuss, the unfortunate situation happening on the 40 acres. CJ Baxter will be out for the season. He's going to have season-ending surgery, so that'll end his season. And now we look ahead to what the running back room. I said this yesterday. That running back room and the reputation of that Texas running back room will be put to the test. So we'll discuss it and break it down here in this first segment. Next segment, we'll go behind the burn orange curtain. Yeah, we'll continue to discuss CJ Baxter, but I want to dive into some of the other topics. Another award watch list has come out, and not a Longhorn listed on this one. I think a lot of people thought the Longhorns would have maybe two guys on this award watch list. They don't have one. So we'll get to that too coming up. We go behind the burnt orange curtain. Also, I want to talk a little bit about the defense a little bit too. I mean, there's continuing to be practice reports about the ascension of Jalen Gilbo, and the way it's looking right now, I think they believe they got potentially a starter there in Jalen Gilbo at the nickel position. So you got multiple starters there at nickel. What does that allow you to do with a guy like Jahdae Barron? What does that allow you to do with other pieces in that secondary? So we'll get into that too coming up a little bit later on. But first, let's get updated. Let's get educated. Let's get informed on all the top stories of the day with my man Patrick Davis and the Horn Headlines.
All right, your Horn Headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the MLB, the Astros took the final regular series matchup with the Rangers 6-4 with the series to win the series and keep the silver boot in Houston. Yusei Kikuchi picked up his first win with the Astros after pitching 5 1/3 innings, allowing 2 runs and striking out 8. The Astros were able to take a 5-0 lead with RBIs from 6 different players in the game before the Rangers made a rally in the 6th to cut the lead to 2. However, they could not fully close the gap. Houston's Zach DeZinzo was called up to the majors earlier this week and got his first hit of his career while coming around to score twice in the game. The Rangers now wait to take on the Yankees in New York on Friday, while the Astros travel to Boston to take on the Red Sox starting Friday as well. In the NFL preseason action, in preseason action, the Panthers will take on the Patriots with Drake May making his debut, while Bryce Young will not play in the matchup. And the Lions will face the Giants after both teams are fined $200,000 for multiple fights breaking out of joint practices earlier this week. And Team USA basketball will take on Serbia at 2 p.m. today for a spot in the gold medal game versus the winner of France and Germany. This will be the team's third matchup, with Serbia beating them by 26 both times, once in Abu Dhabi in the exhibition games and once in the group phase. And looking at our Olympic medal count on the final Thursday of the Olympics, USA still in the total lead. They are in the gold lead, silver lead, and bronze lead. They have 27 golds above China's 25. They also have 35 silvers, 32 bronze, leading them for 94 total medals above China's 65. And that is your Horn Headlines.
All right. Thank you, Patrick, for the Horn Headlines. Yeah, one of the gold medals that Team USA got was in track and field, the 400 meters, and it was another thrilling, dramatic finish. Did you see it? It was probably just as good of a finish as the 100 meters was, with Noah Lyles getting the gold. It was amazing. Quincy Hall ended up winning gold, and it was a come from behind victory. I want to say at one point he was down the stretch, maybe like 4th down the stretch, and was able to come back and win his last. And this is track and field nerdy stuff, because I actually I do like track and field. My dad ran track and field, ran track in college, and I ran track up until I got to college because I wasn't that fast. But the 400 meters, to me, I think it's the toughest race in track and field. I don't think there's a race that's tougher. It essentially asks you to sprint 400 meters, which is physically impossible. Like, no human can sprint. They can't. No,
you're right.
They can't. Like, literally, they cannot. It's called a sprint, and it's the longest sprint, but you can't sprint 400 meters. Your body won't let you do it. So there is a strategy to it, but there is no strategy to the last 100 meters. The last stretch of the 400 is all will. I mean, they've done the scientific studies about how your body produces energy and it's fascinating. Like basically, there's like 3, 4 different phases. Phase one, that's like the start, and they say basically it's like think of like a rocket being propelled right into space, like a rocket liftoff into space. Well, that's the kind of the initial like explosion, like, and that's your start, and that lasts you probably 10 seconds at the most, and it burns off, that energy burns off like that. And then you get to the second phase, and that's a really intense, like, that's a really intense burning of calories and energy, and it's really short-lived, but it's rapid and it's intense, and that's your start. And then after that, you got to get to kind of a high speed pace, but not a max speed. You want to be at high speed, but not max speed after that, which is basically what you practice in track and field. That's why they have you running all these different distances, and they tell you to run at a certain time. Like, no, no, don't sprint. They don't want you to go too fast. No, no, we don't want you to go that fast, because you're trying to achieve high speed, but not max speed. And that's the second phase of it, pretty much. That's after your initial burst, and you've burned off that initial burst, and it's like your second energy source. And they actually have a term for it. I think it's called like anaerobic glycolysis. I'm sure I might have screwed it up, but you could Google it. That's the lactic acid. You heard about lactic acid? That's it. That's
Yeah.
when it starts. Boom. And that is the byproduct of you trying to maintain that high speed without max speed. The lactic acid builds up. So if you get max speed, then your lactic acid is going to build up even faster. So the high speed keeps the lactic acid from building up, which essentially is going to break down your muscles, and it's going to essentially cause your body start kind of eating itself. So that's why you want the peak pace without max speed, right? You want to get a high speed, but not max speed. And then you get to the third part of it, and it's part of your third energy system for prolonged energy. But at this point, the energy demand in your body, right, is more than the supply. There's more demand than a supply. And that's literally the part where they say the monkey's on your back, because your body is struggling, all right, and it's trying to gather energy from every possible source it can, but you're depleted. You got none. And it's just will. It is just will. That's why everybody looks ugly. There is no, you can try to keep your technique as much as you want to, but everybody down that stretch, when that gorilla jumps on your back, you're gonna look ugly. And and that's when your will, your testicular fortitude, what your grit, whatever it is, that's when it comes into play. It's that last. It basically you're trying to sprint to 300 something meters, and then you're just hoping you got the scones for the last 100, and it feels like your body's on fire. I don't know if anybody's ever run a 400. It feels like your body's on fire. Like you literally feel like you're like your body is eating itself. And that's the kind of the best way I can describe it. It is pain like no other. And that's why it to me is the hardest. I think it's the hardest event in track and field. The 800 is pretty hard. I used to run the 8 to train for the 4. You run the 8 to train for the 4 because they want you to learn how to maintain a high speed without maxing out.
Yeah.
Without hitting your peak too soon. It is you got to study it, and it is like I said, it's a grown man's. That is a grown man's race. If you go to a track and field event, everybody will tell you the highlight of the event is not the 100 meters, and it's not the 4x1. It's the 4x4. It's the 4x4. That is the highlight event. That's the last event of the evening usually. It's like no. This is the main event for track and field people. They know the 4x4 is it. Because if you want to watch elite sprinters with world-class speed, you'll see it in that 400, but you also get to see just the sheer triumph of the human spirit and will. And you get to see people just break down and they fold in the face of it. It's like, no, it's too much pain. It's too much. Oh, because I mishandled or miscalculated the back stretch when I should have been having high speed. I maxed out a little too much, and now I got nothing left for the last stretch, or the people who maxed out a little too much at the start. There's a science to it, but then also aside from the science, it just comes down to just will and, like I said, fortitude toward the end, and that's why it's the best race. Because no other race will test all of that. Once you get outside of that 400, you ain't really the 800. There are times in 800 where you necessarily don't have to sprint until like maybe at the very end of it, you'll have to sprint. Then after that, hell, when people run a mile, they don't sprint at all. Like the whole, you never end up reaching max speed. You never really get close to high speed. But in terms of just a sprint that is also added, distance, ain't nothing like the foe. Nothing like the foe, guys. It is a brutal beast. So give props to that young man because Quincy Hall's his name. That was a hell of a run. Running with a 43:40, I believe, was his time. And he ended up winning the event. I will say, like I said, keeping kind of nerdy stuff. Michael Johnson, who's arguably the greatest 400-meter runner of all time, also one of the greatest 200-meter runners of all time, and won gold in both. He tweeted out in June. He said, "Impressive grit from grit," because he's watching that last 100 meters. It's about the last 100. Everybody gonna be pretty much in it until that last 100. Man, that last 100 separates the men from the boys. He's like, impressive grit from Quincy Hall, as the young people say. He got that dog. Relatively new to this event, previously a good 400 hurdler, already 400 world champion, and now U.S. trials champ. Could be the next ... He tweeted that back in June. He knows, and he just told, and that 400 hurdles, that helps. You got to train, and that's the thing about the 400 to make that sucks too. You got to train for like the 8, or you got to have like a 400 hurdle training to run the 4. You can't just run. You don't just run the 4. You don't just practice for the 4. To practice for the 2, you run 400s. To practice for the 100, you run 200s, and you run 50s. You never actually run the 100 in practice. It's crazy. Like you always run shorter to try to gauge your max speed and top speed, and then you always run over to try to make sure you have enough conditioning to finish the race strong. So I've been running the 4, and it's like, no, I'm running the 8. Coach like, yeah, I want you to run the 8 today. And all the track meets would suck. Sometimes you don't even run your event the track meet because you're still training. You're trying to peak at the right time. So coach like, yeah, I want you to run the 8 this week. I'm gonna compete you in the 8. I'm like, well, I don't want to run the 8. I'm gonna suck out there. I run the 8 to train. I'm gonna be terrible in the 8. I'm a 200-meter sprinter. Yeah, I'm running the 8, and I'm out there. Oh, and it's just brutal. Oh man, I used to hate it. I used to hate my track. My track and field coach was the O-line coach. He was Coach Martinez, and he was a Vietnam vet. Like it was great, but he was just eccentric and crazy. And oh man, he used to push us to the limit. But my point being, it's a man's race. It's a grown woman's race. My point is, it separates those who don't have that will or that dog in them. You ain't got that dog in you. That 400 ain't for you. Got to have that dog.
Yeah.
All right, there you go.
By the way, if you want to look up the 4x4 heats are tomorrow very early, and then the 4x4 final will be Saturday at 2.
Saturday at 2. Okay. All right. Yeah, because so when's the 4x1? They're doing the qualifiers for right now, right? I believe. Or they just did for the 4x1. But no, I think the 4x4, as I said, that's my favorite race probably in track and field. And the 400. And when you go to even when you go like to watch, high school track and field, the 400 it's fun to watch people in the 400.
Yeah,
it's just fun to watch people break down like that, and you really you want to figure out what type of like character an athlete has. Watch them run the last 100 meters of that 400.
Yeah,
you will see.
Yeah,
you will see everything you need. It's written all over their face. It's written all over their face, and nobody's pretty. They're all the sexiest woman in the world at that track meet. Watch her run that last 100 meters. You'll be like, oh, it's like watching somebody you ever watch somebody cry ugly? Everybody cries ugly in the last 100 meters of the 4. I mean, nobody looks uglier. I mean, you have to. It's your body is literally eating itself. You feel like your body's on fire, and you just try to finish. And it brings out some of the ugliest faces that humans ever seen.
The 4x1s were this morning, and then the final is tomorrow at like noon. Or 12:47 is what it says. So.
Okay, there you go. Thank you for that, brother. I appreciate it. All right. That's enough of a rant about the Ford. I'm just trying to keep from talking about the sad CJ Baxter news, pretty much. You never heard me rant about track and field. You're like, why be ranting about track and field? Because I don't really want to talk CJ Baxter because I'm sad about it. Okay, let's get to CJ Baxter and the news. We heard yesterday, and it was something we were dreading, but I think we all kind of knew that it was not going to be good news for CJ Baxter in the University of Texas. They confirmed that yesterday. They put out a simple release, a simple statement. Texas sophomore running back CJ Baxter sustained a knee injury in practice on Tuesday, will undergo surgery and be out for the season. That is the length of the statement. And they put that out yesterday. That had to be around like 1:30, something like that.
Yeah.
We speculated on the show that probably not good news that we hadn't heard anything. Usually, with all the speculation on Twitter and all the talk on Twitter about CJ Baxter's injury, usually the university would have wanted to put the kibosh on that, put it into that if there was nothing to it or if it wasn't that serious. And obviously, it was very serious. So CJ Baxter is out for the season. What does that mean for the Longhorns? Well, it means a lot of different things for the Longhorns. First of all, we've heard a lot about Trey Wisner. We've been hearing a ton about him. Well, I hope that it wasn't all. I hope it wasn't coach speak. I hope they were serious about their compliments about Trey Wisner and their intention to use him more because now they need him. They need Trey Wisner. There's no doubt about that. And I'm a little sad. I think schematically, like I said, there's a lot to this, and we'll break it all down going behind the Burns curtain. You're not going to see the pony package as much. It just doesn't make sense.
Nope.
You guys know I'm a big advocate of the pony package. I've given you the numbers. It is your most explosive, effective, and efficient personnel grouping, but without depth at running back. Maybe later on in the season, when the young buck steps up, like a Jarek Gibson or Christian Clark, there's another element to this. We need one of those young guys to step up. They have to grow up fast, unfortunately, for one of those young guys. And the pony package doesn't make sense to put yourself at risk putting both of your workhorse running backs out there at the same time. So you'll see more single back set, period. More single back set stuff, which is your 11 personnel, your 12 personnel, which Texas is comfortable with. Those are their two most utilized personnel groupings. But you'll probably get more Big 11, Big 12. I would even say, Sark, if he really wants to be creative and be innovative with personnel groupings. I know he likes variety with his personnel groupings. He could break out the 10 personnel. He had it at Alabama, he called the red package. That was 4 wide receivers on the field, 1 back, 0 tight ends. You could go that route, all right, and potentially, use supplement what you were going to do with the pony package, maybe with blitzing teams with speed by putting all the wide receivers on the field, and that's also a 1 back package for you too. And you have a embarrassment of riches at wide receiver. That could be a way to go. I'm a little concerned about who you're short. When you had 3 backs that you trusted, and then you could obviously look at potentially one of the younger backs and which one of those guys separates. You were in a very, I would say you're in a comfortable position, if you will, with the depth at that spot. Now with CJ Baxter out, I am a little concerned of who's going to play what roles within that backfield, right? Who's your short yardage back? Who's your wildcat back? That kind of person, right? Because CJ Baxter, I'm assuming, was your power back, your interior run guy, and when you got down goal line, who's your goal line guy? We know red zone was an issue for Texas. Who's going to be on the goal line? Your space, because you don't have a lot of big backs. They're not big backs. Jared Gibson, Christian Clark are just freshmen, so I like their body. So I like Jared Gibson's body. I think he's got a good frame, and I think he's got good armor on him for a freshman. But they're not big guys, so I do wonder short yardage, goal line, wildcat. Who you're going to use down there potentially. I also, with Jaden Blue right now, buy Jaden Blue stock. I would say Jaden Blue at this point, in terms of all-purpose yards, I'd put the over/under at 1,200, 1,300 all-purpose yards for him right now. I mean, those touches have to go somewhere with Cedric Baxter. He's your guy now. He's your main. He's your workhorse running back. He's your main course running back, if you will. And I think they had plans to utilize him and weaponize him in the passing game more as a complement to CJ Baxter. But now that he is going to be kind of taking the place of CJ Baxter, I don't think they're going to totally disregard and discard the plan they had to utilize Jaden Blue as a receiving threat. So I still think he's going to get some of that as a receiving threat out of the backfield, in addition to now getting more of the workload and burden of being more of the every down workhorse running back that Cedric Baxter was going to be for him. So they need all these guys to step up, and the offensive line, I mean, goes without saying, this puts more of a burden on them. They need to open up holes. They need to be a force, imposing their will. You got 4 of the 5 starters returning, big humans. Stark talks about it all the time. You got one of the biggest offensive lines in the country. Well, now is the time. We should the yards before contact. That is something to keep up with. Yards before contact. That's basically kind of what your offensive line is giving you as a runner. That needs to be for Texas this year and that needs to be a priority. They need to give these young backs some room to work early on. I remember when Bijan and Rojo were here in Sark's first year, how oftentimes they would turn a negative play into a positive play. Somebody would hit him in the backfield and they wouldn't go down. They turn a 3-yard loss into a 4-yard gain. You'd be like, woo, good job, good job. You can't have those plays because you don't have Bijan and Rojo, and now you don't even have Cedric Baxter. Like I said, yards before contact. You need to give these young backs a little breathing room so that they can make some plays. And because their vision, I don't know if it's going to be as I don't advanced, if you will, as a Cedric Baxter's was. See, Jaden Blue will, but I'm talking about the other guys that have to step up. Your Trey Wisner's, your Jerry Gibson, or Christian Clark. So I think it's a burden on the O line too. I also wouldn't be surprised. You could break. Juan Davis is somebody they talked about a lot, right? Talked about Juan Davis and how he stepped up. Juan Davis was an athlete coming in. I'm not saying I would put Juan Davis in the backfield to give him the football, but in terms of someone in the backfield that can be an insert blocker, someone that can run those screens, swing screens in the backfield. I wonder if you're looking for another body, if you would consider him as a fullback / H back. That you can throw there in the backfield, just like I said, for situationally. Maybe on the goal line, you need somebody that can be someone that you can put in the backfield. Actually, that can be an insert or a lead blocker. Maybe he can be that guy that you can look for on the goal line. It's going to take some creativity and a multi-pronged approach to remedy the issues now that are going to arise as a result of losing C.J. Baxter for the season. It's not going to be just one thing. It's going to solve it.
No. Do you think this affects the circle of trust for wide receivers in the fact of he needs to have, more consistency out of them a little bit more now, not necessarily knowing what he's going to get out of the running game in the same place, but also he's probably going to throw more screens.
Yeah, I think honestly, Sark, and I said this yesterday, you need to put more on Quinn. I mean, period. Give the ball to Quinn. At least a quarter or a third of those touches to C.J. Baxter. You were just going to hand the football off to C.J. Baxter, or you're going to throw it to C.J. Baxter, whatever. Just give that to Quinn.
Yeah.
Give it like literally you have a veteran quarterback, 3rd-year starter in the system, all right, who's got a veteran offensive line. So the early down pass rates for Texas, they should increase. Your early down pass rate should be higher. And they don't need to be vertical routes downfield. You don't need to take mean chances. But like you just said, Patrick, screens.
Yeah.
Wide receiver screens, little tunnel screens and little bubble screens, smoke routes to the wide receivers, quick game to the wide receivers, a hitch, a slant, a quick out. Those are just long handoffs, man. Those are long handoffs, high percentage passes for him. The RPO game, which is also a quick game. Right now, Sark's early down pass rate, first and second down pass rate, is probably a little over 50%. He likes to stay balanced. I think he should be close to 60% this year in early down pass rate. I would, if I was him. Matter of fact, we can get into this a little bit more in Rod's rant of the when we go behind the Burnham's curtain, actually. But if I was him, I would think about upping that, because that to me will, maybe you now need to use the passing game to open up the run game. If teams are so fearful of all the speed and skill you have at wide receiver, which you have a lot, and obviously the arm talent of Quinn Ewers, who can touch every blade of grass, and if you make them have to respect your passing game, they'll do it by dropping back guys, basically taking the passing game away with numbers, dropping their safeties back, trying to win the numbers advantage in the passing game. Well, to win the numbers advantage in the passing game, you have to be losing it. All right, in the box. So you can force them to play with a light box, and they'll give you the run if you can make them respect the pass. They'll give you the run. They'll give it to you. They'll be like, nah, hell no. I'd rather them hand the ball off and have to go down the field 11, 12 plays rather than them quick strikes with these haymakers and these, basically these deep shots and vertical shots down the field. Whatever, to carve up my secondary because we're in man-to-man coverage because we want to stack the box. So, and maybe teams will decide now they'd force you to prove it. I would, if I was going up against Texas, I wouldn't play them with a heavy box. Why? You just lost your starting running back. Now, I like Jaden Blue, but Cedric Baxter won the job last year initially, so you really liked him, and he was going to be your starting running back this year, so you really like him. He
Yeah.
definitely adds an element that you don't have with Jaden Blue,
Yeah.
and I
I
like me
mean,
some Jaden Blue.
you're just gonna make him
So
prove it first. You know,
exactly. So I think early on teams will play you with a light box.
yeah.
I think teams will play you with a light box, and they will have try to devote numbers to the passing game. So you should early on, I think, get the benefit of the doubt from defenses, forcing you to prove it to them, forcing Jaden Blue to prove it to them. So that's kind of what I think Sark needs to do. We'll get into it actually next segment, but I think Sark creatively needs to rely more on his quarterback. It should be Quinn's show anyway. And I like CJ. I said Sark likes to balance, and you can end up with that balance. But Sark wants to open up with the pass and close with the run. That's been the way he's operated anyway as an offensive coordinator and play caller. And I think now just take maybe a third of those touches you were going to get to CJ and just give them to Quinn and say, Quinn, we're going to put the ball in your hands more early on in the games to set the tone. Why not? He's a third-year starting quarterback. If you can't give the ball to him and let him throw high percentage quick passes, things that are very rhythmic that'll get him in a rhythm and in a groove, and you can't trust him to do that, then we got bigger problems. We got bigger fish to fry. And I know you can trust him to do that. So my first adjustment, if I'm Sark, Quinn. We're gonna make it more of a Quinn offense, more of a Quinn focused offense. We'll have the running game be extension. You see the passing game be extensions of the running game, and we'll have long handoffs, which are screens and RPOs and quick game, and that's how we'll approach it until we kind of figure out what our identity is going to be in the running game because we don't really know now. You don't know what your identity is in the running game. All right, so we'll come back. We'll get into more of the adjustment Texas has to make with CJ Baxter being out. We'll also talk about this watch list. Another national award watch list was released, and no Longhorn listed on this watch list. And this was one of, I think if you ask Longhorn fans prior to the season, they would have guessed you might have two guys potentially on this watch list. We'll talk about that, what it means, the disrespect, if you will, to Texas. I'll get into that and much more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to go behind the burnt orange curtain, talk some Texas football. Of course, we have been talking about the injury to Cedric Baxter. He's going to be out for the season. And I said this yesterday, and I'll just throw it out there again, trying to be on the optimistic side of this thing. Guys, if there is any position group at Texas that should be able to sustain an injury like this, it would be the running back position. Like I said, the running back position at Texas, their argument can be made. It's running back you. Right? When you talk about historically, Earl Campbell, Ricky Williams, Cedric Benson, Deontay Foreman, Bijan Robinson, Jamal Charles, you name it. I'd put Texas running back room all time, and recently I'd put it up against any position group of any program in the country. It's that good. It's historically a room and a position group at Texas that is about excellence, and it has been that way, and I think it will be that way. So to me, I mean, even when Texas was bad, guys, they were producing NFL running backs. Malcolm Brown, Fozzie Whitaker. I mean, even when Texas was bad, Deontay Foreman, they were producing NFL running backs. They got the second most running backs on NFL rosters right now behind Georgia. They got the only coach that I can think of into short choice who had two first round running backs in the draft a couple of years ago, Jameer Gibbs and Bijan Robinson, that he had recruited and coached. I don't even know how that's possible in this day and age. It is, but I don't know anybody else who can brag about that. Stan Drayton before him was a coach that skipped the coordinator level altogether and went from just a position coach to a head coach at Temple because of how everybody respects and the clout that everybody, gains from being in that room or associated with that Texas running back room. It's like I said, no matter, they had two players on the Doak Walker Award watch list that just came out. They had C.J. Baxter and Jaden Blue. I believe they were the only school that had two players on it. They had two running backs invited to the combine each of the last 2 years, back-to-back years. Only school that can say that. They had two running backs drafted each of the last two drafts. They're the only school that can say that in back-to-back years. Guys, if there's any position that can deal with an injury to a starter and sustain it, it would be the running back position. And so I really don't know much about Jarrett Gibson and Christian Clark, but what I do know is that Texas running back room, just like last year, CJ Baxter won a job. He got hurt. Jay Bruce comes in. He ends up, potentially being the best running back in the country till he got hurt. He would have won the Doak Walker Award. Still ended up being the first running back drafted off the board. And for back-to-back years, you have the top running back taken off the board, like drafted. Think about it, guys. The running back position is being devalued, all right, in the NFL. And yet Texas running backs are getting drafted more than ever. And think about it, you Texas, that's your pitch to running backs. Like, listen, the running back position is being devalued. They're not drafting running backs high anymore in the draft, but they're drafting Texas running backs pretty high. Texas still got first round running backs, second round running backs. We've had multiple running backs drafted the last 2 years. So they're not drafting running backs anymore. They're not drafting them as high as they used to, and they're not drafting them as much as they used to, and they're paying them less than they used to. But the Texas running backs, they're drafting those guys. Like, you're the outlier when it comes to the running back position overall. So I have faith in Tashura Choice, and I got faith in that room, just that running back room and the culture in that room. That culture is a great culture. It really is. And like I said, I trust Chick-fil-A when it comes to nuggets. I trust Green Bay when it comes to quarterbacks. I think I trust Texas when it comes to running backs. There's one thing you can trust Texas on. Texas in the running back position. So I don't know how it's going to look. Jarrett Gibson, Christian Clark, Trey Wisner, of course, Jaden Blue. I don't know how it's going to look. Right now, I'd put money on Jaden Blue having 1,300 all-purpose yards and probably leaving. If he does achieve that, leaving to go to the draft after that. Why? Because the running back position is being devalued, and it's just smart after you have a big year at running back to go, just like Jonathan Brooks did. So that's what I'm predicting. Jaden Blue, big year. All right, you fantasy nerds, invest in Jaden Blue. 1,300 plus all-purpose yards. I don't know if he'll get it could get you 1,000 yards rushing, but I don't know if he will. I think they've had plans to use him in the passing game so much. I don't think they abandoned those plans altogether. I think now they just kind of fuse those plans together. He's going to be part CJ Baxter and part Jaden Blue, the threat in the passing game. But by the way, listen, guys, don't forget, Jaden Blue was at one point the number one running back in the country coming out of high school. Like at one point, he was rated the number one running back in the country because, like we said, that running back room, it's loaded. We just forget how loaded it is because we always kind of focus on, the running back right now who's getting the most publicity and the most attention, which was C.J. Baxter. Man, those guys are talented. That's why Tashard Choice, that pitch that he can make about his resume as a running back coach, it allows them to go, cherry pick the best running backs in the country, like they did with the CJ Baxter, with a Jaden Blue. Jonathan Brooks was the best running back in Texas when they got him. So I don't know. I got anxiety about Cedric Baxter. I want him to be okay. I know that's traumatic psychologically. That's devastating. You're working your butt off all offseason, first damn padded practice. You start thinking you're cursed. I've been there, trust me, and it sucks. So for that young man, the mental health and the wellness part, he's got great teammates. So I'm worried about that for him, the anxiety part of it with that. But for the team and the running game overall and the identity of it, I do think they're going to be okay. I just don't know how it's going to look. I have faith in that running game. I do. I have faith in that running back room, I should say, more than anything. All right, there you go. So that's my positive vibes. Let's talk about the scheme and how the strategy is going to change. And I said this before. I think Sark needs to now have more trust in Quinn. If it's Quinn's team, now more than ever, we need to see that it's Quinn's team. I think early down pass rate has to increase for Texas. I was actually looking at this, looking at the SEC's early down pass rate. You look at their early down pass rate. You're talking about first quarter and first and second down. And the SEC is at 45% the last 2 years. Early down pass rate. It's higher than it was in 2019, but that's what the SEC is. They're running league. So 55% of the time, early downs, they're running the ball in the SEC. If you'll notice, when Sark is in his bag, Longhorn fans know this. When he's in his bag, when he's really motivated to be creative and innovative, big games, a lot on the line, Sark tends to lean toward the pass when he's being really creative. He tends, and it makes sense, right? He said his pass game is an RPO-based passing game. He's one of the most sophisticated, elite screen designers in all of football, really, in all of college football, definitely. And that's also, part of his passing game, the RPO. And these are, easy, rhythmic, high percentage passes. They won't get your quarterback in trouble. You're not taking high risks. And it should be muscle memory at this point, third year to start. It should be muscle memory. In terms of the chemistry with these wide receivers, maybe that's a little different because some of them are new. But for Quinn, the footwork, the mechanics for all these types of concepts, because Sark runs them so much, they should be second nature. And I think this is what you'll see on early down. So I went back and tracked first half early down pass rate in big games last year for Sark. I just told you for the SEC, you're talking about a 45% early down pass rate last season. But for Sark, 56% versus Alabama. This is first half early down pass rate. Oklahoma, 58%. K-State, that was a ranked team, 58%. Oklahoma State, Big 12 title game, you had 62% there. Against Washington, not so much. Washington, you were at 53%. But in Washington, remember, you were running the ball effectively. You're running the ball so well effectively against Washington. You just didn't run it enough and didn't have enough chances in the second half because of the fumbles in the third quarter, and they kept the football for so long. Remember, you were running it really well. So I think then Sark just, I believe at that point he adjusted to their running the ball really well while we throwing so much. And remember all the batted passes early on? The batted passes, like Quinn wasn't in his groove until later on in that game. So I think that may be what it is. But basically Sark's opening script, which he claims, well, at least the sideline reporter for that Alamo, but I think it was for the Washington game actually. She said his opening script is 40 plays. Yes, sir. That's wild. I've never even heard of that before. That's a lot of plays. So basically what we're looking at is his opening script. That's when he's being innovative. That's when he's in his bag. He's being really creative. I think by the time the game is over through four quarters, I think the early down pass rate and the run rate balances out. And it gets to be really, even. But early on in games, when he's on his script, especially for big games, the pass rate seems to be higher, hovering above 55%, even getting closer to 60% or higher. And I think that's where he should be damn near every game in the SEC next year. I think she should be hovering close to 60% early down pass rate. Now, like I said, Sark's blueprint is to open up with the passing game, have them chasing your pre-snap motion, have them, on their heels with all the vertical shots downfield, have them chasing your speed, wearing themselves out, chasing your speed for 2.5 to 3 quarters. And then when Texas does have a lead, when it gets to the fourth quarter, that's when your big humans, that's when that recipe kicks in. And your opponent who's tired from having to chase you and defend the vertical pass and defend the neutralize the pre-snap motion. You got them running east and west, north and south. And then in the fourth quarter when they're tired, that's when the big humans, the 330, 350-pound humans, that's when they start leaning on them, playing bully ball, choking the life out of the clock. Basically, the Bama game. That's his ideal game. All right. Early on, I blitz them with all of my ingenuity and my creativity and the speed and the cheat codes and all the hacks. And then late in the game, we're just going to pound them into submission. Old school. Boom. It goes from being a very progressive modern offense to playing bully ball when your opponent's tired. All right. And they're at their weakest in the fourth quarter. That's what he ultimately wants. So, as I said, the pass rates will balance out, but early game, early downs, he should be hovering close to 60% to set the tone. And then you can open up the run game with the passing game. All right. The passing game will open up the run game because teams will start respecting the pass. Then they'll back up, respecting the pass. They'll drop their safeties back. They'll start dropping 7, 8 guys, give you a lighter box, and beg you to hand the damn football off and stop throwing it. Stop throwing it down our throats and please just run it down our throat. We would much rather have that because that gives us a better chance of success. So that's where I would go if I was Sark. I think the early down pass rate this year, it should early down pass rate. So we're talking about in the first half on that script should be hovering close to 60%, 57, 58%. And Sark doesn't like that because Sark's moderate. He loves moderation. He loves balance. He loves moderation. And that's great. But there are times for extremism. There's times when you must become an extremist. And I believe losing CJ Baxter should push you more toward being an extremist just a little bit in that specific area. It'll help. Like I said, the SEC is behind. You need to go into the SEC shell shocking that league. When there are it's going to be two ways of looking at that transition into the league. Either you're going to be adapting to the SEC or the SEC is going to be adapting to you. I'd much rather it be the latter. I'd much rather the SEC be like, damn, got to keep up with Sark, man. Early down pass rate, empty formations. He's coming in running 10%. Look at every trend in the SEC that is kind of decreasing. Whatever the SEC is going away from, you should run toward, sprint toward it. Whatever they're not doing. Remember what Nick Saban said? Nick Saban said, I don't like Sark's offense because of squeeze splits, condensed, compressed sets. We went through that, right? Why is Nick Saban saying that? Because he doesn't see it in the SEC a lot. Doesn't see it a lot. If he saw it a lot, he'd be comfortable with it. He sees it all the time. He doesn't see it a lot. He sees it when he plays Sark. And they don't have that a ton in the SEC. So you should run more of that. If it makes Nick Saban uncomfortable, that means it makes everybody else in the SEC uncomfortable. Do more of that. And that would be my approach if I would start going to the SEC. All right. I'm not stuck in here with y'all. Y'all stuck in here with me. y'all need to be afraid. I shouldn't beware going to the SEC. Y'all need to be aware of me coming into the SEC. That's the attitude. Any other attitude, I think, will get you beat. That's how I look at it, especially now with the CJ Baxter news. More aggressive, more extreme. You would think some people are going to go conservative with it. Nope. Now you need to be more aggressive and more extreme now with your approach because you're going to need that tactical, strategic, and schematic advantage. Even more so now because you lost some of your talent advantage. Just a little bit. All right, we'll come back. We'll have a topic for the Big Fat Poll today. We'll also get into the musically themed day of the week. All that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the horn.
Back on the Rodcast on a Thursday morning, and that means it's a new theme Thursday where we pick a different theme every single week and play songs fitting into that. And today, since breakdancing starts in the Olympics tomorrow morning, we're going to be playing some breakdancing favorites all show long here on the horn to get us ready for that big 9 a.m. Start for breakdancing tomorrow morning. So breakdancing songs
Like
all
that.
day here on.
Yeah, we don't know what kind of music. I mean, is this going to be the music they use?
I mean,
We don't even know.
this is old school breakdancing music that I'm going to be playing today. I have no idea what current breakdancing music is. We'll find that out tomorrow. I also don't know what the Kazakhstanian people are going to be playing for breakdancing. Are they going to be listening to Herbie Hancock, or are they going to be listening to someone from Kazakhstan? Who knows?
Oh man, yeah, I can't wait. Honestly, I just can't wait to see the structure of it, like how they judge it, everything. The really how they comment on it, like the commentators.
Yeah, the commentators
like,
of it too.
Like what are they going to be? What are they going to be?
Who are they going to get for the commentators?
That's also another one too. I think they should have brought Snoop in somehow.
I mean, he's there, isn't he?
He is. Yeah, Snoop is there. I've seen him on doing some interviews and stuff like that. So he's there. He's there hanging out. But like I said, I don't know who's going to be the color commentary and the play-by-play person of the breakdancing, but it's going to be awesome.
It's going to be good. So yeah, breakdancing music all day long here. On a new theme Thursday. Let's get to Big Fat Poll today. Text line's open 512-447-3776. And we're going to put this up on X at the Horn ATX.
Patrick's Big Fat Poll of the day on the Horn.
Let's stay with what we've been talking about all day in the Longhorn rushing game. The question today, the poll of the day, is going to ask about how many running backs are going to be involved in the rushing attack this year. Now that we know C.J. Baxter is out, there's still 4 guys that are still in that conversation who are all high-touted recruits, all guys that have gotten good reports so far. The question today, how many 300-yard rushers will Texas have this season? We know last year they had 3. Jaden Blue had 398 yards rushing last year, so he comes in at 3rd. 2 years ago, Jonathan Brooks was 3rd. He was at 197. And 3 years ago, Keelan Robinson actually came in 3rd with 322. So 2 out of the 3 years with Sark, he has had 3 300-yard rushers on this roster. But now, how many do you see? Do you see it being more spread out, or does it go? They go heavy Jaden Blue, and you say, okay, we're just going to go heavy him. He's going to get, where you were looking at 2022 season is when it was Bijan Robinson so heavy, and then Roschon took up the rest of the share. And so Brooks only had, less carries. But how many 300-yard rushers will Texas have this season?
That's good. Just because, I don't know which one of those young guys is going to step up and win. We don't know what their rate of development is going to be, the Christian Clark or the Jarrett Gibson. They're going to need one of them to step up. You just don't know which one. And if they step up sooner rather than later, and I imagine even in the practice this week, they're probably going to be getting more share and more chances with the 2s potentially, and maybe even a shot with the 1, so the coach can see pass protection is going to be big in determining that.
Yep.
If the young guys can, if they can't pass protect, they're not going to play, and they're not going to get to that 300. But if one of them can pass protect a little bit better than the other one, that guy's probably going to get the benefit of the doubt and earn the trust of the coaches. So he'll play a little bit more. Yeah, that's good. And you're not gonna have the pony package. The pony package would help these guys get to, 300, or some of the guys who are 3rd potentially in that rotation of the running back, help them get 300, because you're not going to play now 2 backs at the same time. You're going to be a lot of single back sets. And I don't know if those youngsters are going to get as much play, as many reps in single back sets. Man, I'm going to go with just 2.
You're going to say 2?
I'm going to say just 2. Sark's had a 1,000-yard back going back every year since, I want to say, since his time in Washington or something. Yeah. He brags about that too. Like, he's always had 1,000.
Oh, yeah. No, and you assume that would be, but you assume that's Jaden Blue.
You assume it's Jaden Blue. So. Yeah, but my thing is, he needs a respite, so we think Trey Wise is going to be that guy.
Yeah.
And then you need whoever was because he was supposed to be the Keelan Robinson role, the 3rd kind of complimentary boutique back, and now he's in the secondary role to be your workhorse back. Who's going to be your, kind of that 3rd option, that complimentary option that you can sprinkle.
And that's that one we're going to see probably early on. We'll see Christian Clark and Garrett Gibson get some carries and see what they can do. That, because Christian Clark too, it's in the highlights, but every time I see his legs, you just think this guy's got to be like, he's got to be able to do pass pro, right? Because he's got to be able to plant his feet there. And he's, maybe this guy could be red zone, because you just look at those legs and you think, they're tree trunks.
He is. And didn't start comparing to like Bijan? Didn't start having like a Bijan comparison with
That's what I'm
Christian
saying.
Clark
So
too?
you're saying if that is he in there, or he's, and then you say, if Christian Clark comes in and he becomes that third change of pace that you just feel this guy can get us 3 to 4 yards. We can put him in the game, and I feel good that he's going to pick up yardage, even if he gets touched to the line. His legs keep pumping. But then you add in a Jared Gibson, and Gibson can break some.
Yeah.
And I mean, because that's really how, if you want to talk about Jaden Blue and Keelan Robinson getting over 300 yards, it's because they had 60-yard runs and 50-yard runs. Like, they had big plays. And it's about, if you add those big plays up and you get 2 or 3 of those, it's a lot easier to break 300. So I could see one of them just not even on, necessarily the amount of carries. But if you say Christian Clark gets in and gets a good amount of carries, that third guy, but Jared Gibson comes in and just breaks some, because, if you're, again, you just talked about it, people, stepping back on it and not loading the box, and you allow these Texas wide receivers to block downfield while you have a Jared Gibson, and they just don't respect him because they think this is their third, fourth string running back, and this is fourth, fifth string because the first guy got hurt. So why are we even loading up? Everybody scoot back, and then he goes and breaks one, and you get it. You just pull that yardage right up.
You're right. I didn't think about that, but you're right. That's why, Jaden Blue, I believe he actually led, I don't say it was him or Keelan Robinson in terms of yards per carry. And he was one of your most explosive backs. You look at, obviously, a guy with volume share. And that's because he was explosive. Now you're going to use him more in the interior runs because he's your workhorse running back. That's going to drop that, explosive play rate for him. And you almost wanted somebody else that you could throw in there that can provide that explosive play element in the run game. That was supposed to be Jaden Blue. And I think it still is going to be Jaden Blue. And maybe that is it. Maybe Jaden Blue's game, he just, evolves to being a guy that can do it all. But out of necessity, like, no, man, we need you to be a back that does it all. And if he proves that, hell, man, he's going to be an NFL. He's going to be an NFL draft pick.
Yeah.
That's simple. So, yeah, I say two. I don't know if the youngsters are going to, I don't know if they have enough time right now to earn the trust of the coaches, pass protection wise, and get familiarity with the playbook enough for them to get out there in all these single back sets and still have a chance to, make plays. But Texas is blowing out a lot of teams. There's nothing to it. They're blowing out a lot of teams. You don't want Jaden Blue and Trey Wise in there because you don't exactly. If you get up in the fourth quarter and you're up 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, those guys are out quick. I'm sorry, like done. We are not taking any chances. Yeah. And then you may get those youngsters numbers going up a little bit more. I don't know how many teams you're going to be blowing out, so I don't want to be arrogant and say, well, you're going to be blowing out 4 or 5 teams this year. We don't know that. You may have 2 teams you're blowing out, maybe Colorado State. That's a blowout.
Hopefully.
It better be.
I mean, we saw some of these games last year.
The Wyoming, I'm saying, I don't know. Wyoming game, you didn't have that opportunity, right? That was a tight game to the wire, and then you blew them out in the fourth quarter.
Tight down to the wire.
Houston game, TCU, K-State. So, if you got some blowouts, those numbers, I think they could go up and increase. But if you got tight games, those guys are gonna be in there the whole time.
Yeah.
So that also it's a lot of different factors, but I'm gonna say 2 right now. All right, good question there for the topic for the big fat poll of the day. When we come back, we'll get into NFL news, notes, and nuggets. We'll discuss the Texans a little bit. We'll discuss the Pittsburgh Steelers. There's some very un-Steeler-like things happening because the Steelers and the Texans are going to face off tomorrow in preseason. We do know that Justin Fields will basically be having an open audition for the quarterback position. We'll talk about that a little bit. We'll also get into some discussion about the Cowboys division opponents. I've been doing some research and found something out about Jaden Daniels that I'll share with you guys, and also something we brought up yesterday about Jalen Hurts, but another story from that Jeremy Fowler McManus piece that talks about a schism or a rift in the locker room for the Eagles between Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni. There's another tidbit, no nugget from that story that I think is really interesting. Actually relates to the Longhorns in a way. We'll discuss that on the other side too. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the horn. Mm-mm. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a new theme Thursday edition of the Rodcast. That's when my co-host, Patrick Davis, the Idealionaire, who comes up with all the musically themed days of the week, he comes up with a really creative theme, usually based off something relevant happening. Maybe it's a celebrity birthday, maybe it's an anniversary of some kind. Well, with the Olympics happening right now, a lot of the new competition at the Olympics, breakdancing, yeah, breakdancing is one of the competitions this year in the Olympics, and I believe it starts up this weekend. Starts up today or tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow it starts
So
up.
so
And
the B girls are tomorrow and the B boys are on Saturday.
oh man! So in honor of the breakdancing competition in the Olympics, I don't even know who the favorite is. I'm assuming America. We should be. I think America and Japan. I don't know why I threw that out there, but I believe they are the favorites. Just my random analysis. But that's what my man Patrick is. He's playing jams that are considered breakdancing jams, right? Songs that
Yes.
you can break dance to. Yeah, you're right. Dancing machines definitely one of them.
Look, I did my research. I wasn't just guessing on these. I looked up and looked
Yeah,
up list of this. So
Dancing Machine fits it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, I actually don't know a lot. I mean, I don't know a lot of breakdancing songs, but I don't know them off the top of my head, but I can recognize. I recognize every song you play.
oh yeah, you should be
Half
able
the
to,
first
yeah.
two I've recognized that you played. I was like, oh yeah, I recognize that song. All right, so we don't know what kind of songs. The whole point is, my man Patrick's trying to figure out what songs they're gonna play in the Olympics during the breakdancing competition. All right, to breakdance too. Like, what are they gonna play these songs? Or is somebody making new breakdancing music that we're unaware of? Do they just go just some totally different genres? Do they go basically breakdancing to techno music? Do you decide? You know what I mean? Like, I don't even know. I have no idea. We don't know. That's why we're intrigued. We're trying to figure out exactly how this breakdancing competition is going to work. All right, so thanks to my man Patrick, always hooking us up on a new theme Thursday. We appreciate him. We also appreciate him coming up with the topic for the big fat poll of the day, which already got some folks who've already voted on the big fat poll today. It is Longhorn football related. Patrick, give the folks the topic for the big fat poll today.
Big fat poll today. How many 300-yard rushers will Texas have this season? They've done it twice with 3 in the last 3 years. In Sark's 3 years, twice he has had 3 300-yard rushers. So we will see this year with TJ Baxter out and a full lead dominant back and a full second back, and then you had Trey Wisner as your third that you thought maybe he would be your third and he could get there. Now, do you still say it's 3? Do you say it's 2? Do you think it's 4 now that somehow they spread it out so thin that everyone's getting carries and everybody gets to eat? That's what we're asking you on the poll there.
And they play more games. Well, we hope they're going to play more games this year, right? They're going to play. You would assume multiple postseason games, right? I think Longhorn fans would be disappointed if the Longhorns don't play multiple postseason games. That includes an SEC title game, college football playoff game of some sort, that kind of stuff. So you do have more games. Now, like I said, for all these guys to get in, you would assume Texas has like a comfortable lead. Either Texas has comfortable leads in a lot of these games where they can put in the third, basically the fourth string guy now because CJ Baxter's out. So we're already kind of working our way through the depth chart here. Like the fourth or the fifth string running back can get in there and get some carries. So you got some blowouts in there. Or those youngsters, Jared Gibson and Christian Clark, they have a expedited development where one of them separates early on and they show promise and we go, okay, that guy's ready to play. I mean, there's no need to, no need to slow, there's no need to slow play it. You can actually, he can contribute right away. So either if one of those two things happen, that's how you get to your 3. Right now I'm at 2. And I believe that's where, most of the poll, I think it's split right now. 40% says 2, 40% say 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's the glass half full is 3. Because you're assuming, all right, they're going to be up in some games and they're going to be able to put in the 4th-string running back, or the 4th-string running back is not he's not performing like that. He's performing like a 2nd-string running back. So we can put him in there. We trust him. We can accelerate his development because he can pass protect well enough and he knows enough of the playbook. So even early on in the season, you get your three running backs because one of those young guys starts to ascend. So that's glass half full. But if that doesn't happen, if one of those young guys, it takes them a little while, and you are not blowing out teams, so you can throw in your 4th-string running back in the fourth quarter to get 3-4 carries, whatever it may be. If that's not the case, or those youngsters don't separate, your reality may be, all right, all we have in terms of the running backs we trust is Jaden Blue and Trey Weissner, and we got to really limit. And we're in some tight games, so we got to limit the exposure of those guys. And those guys just boss hog most of the share.
Yeah, look, we talk about the circle of trust of wide receivers a lot. So who will be in the circle of trust of running backs? And that Sark trust too, because there's a point of it too, of at the end of the game, and you want to put in guys, but are they going to be sure enough with the football that you trust putting them in games and not turning the ball over, or not, trying to, because I mean, you look at a lot of young guys, and it is that I want to get 2 extra yards. So I'm going to spin the ball out, and all of a sudden now you got to put your defense back on the field.
I agree.
Because someone was trying to get 2 extra yards. So that circle of trust of how, which one of the young guys are going to be able to stay, or any of the guys are going to be able to stay on the field if they have any turnover issues.
Honestly, Patrick, that's a great point. I'll give you this stat before we get to the Horn headlines. If you go look at it, even if you take away Quinn Ewers' fumbles, Texas fumble rate more than tripled the SEC average. Of the Longhorns' 16 fumbles, 9 were recovered by opponents, which ranked in the back third of college offenses. That Washington game, essentially, you can, if you want to, you can say he lost the game because of the fumbles.
Yeah,
you can throw it if you want to. You really can get that simple. That's why you basically didn't have the ball in the fourth quarter, in the third quarter, and you lost 2 possessions on those fumbles. That could have been the game in a nutshell. So I agree with you. Ball security, that's something we haven't talked about. Major issue, might be the number 1 issue.
Yeah, especially for young
which
backs.
one of those young guys? Yeah, honestly, that and then pass pro. We might not be talking about them as a runner yet. It's like, hey, can he hold on to the football, and can he pass protect?
Does he understand what the goal is at the end of games when we're putting him in? That the goal is put your head down. Well, don't put your head down, but put your head down and just go ahead, get those yards and hold on to the football.
Hold on to the football.
And I don't need to see any highlight plays, because that's where you start to get in trouble. Is someone that was the best running back possibly in their and the entire area they were playing in last season.
And you know what you need to do if you're Sark with those youngsters? No joke. When you get them in there, because you're going to be putting them in there today, obviously, because this is, obviously you don't have CJ Baxter, so you're trying to see which one of them can earn your trust. Blitz the hell out of them when they're in there, see which one can pick it up, and tell the defense when those youngsters are carrying the ball, strip it.
Yep.
I need you to go after it. I want to say, I care about you stripping the ball more than I care about tackling them right now. Yep. Strip the ball. Let's see if you can hold them. I'd do that. I'd go after him if I was. That's the only way you're gonna find out.
Yeah.
So I'd put him in there and throw him right into the fire. Like, all right, man, we don't usually blitz a lot of practice. We're gonna be blitzing 80% of the time when them dudes are in there. Blitz like hell. So we'll have a lot of film on who can pick it up, who's obviously got the right technique picking it up, and then also I want defense. Hey, don't worry about tackling them today. Go to the football. Just go strip the ball from these youngsters. Because I want to be able to get in their rear end about ball security, and I can't do it right now because they ain't messed up. You know what I mean? Wait though, now when I see them mess up, oh man, now we can just you can just get on a ball security, and yeah, I think that you're right about that, Patrick. That's a great point to bring up. That should be honestly that's the number 1 priority in evaluating these youngsters. That's it. That's number 1. Nobody's talked about that, but you're right. That should be it. All right. Good question there. Go check it out at the Horn ATX, the topic for the big fat poll of the day. All right. We'll get into some NFL discussion. Lots of NFL topics to discuss here. We'll get into the latest in the Brandon Ayuk saga that is going on. I want to look at some of the opponents for the Cowboys, the division opponents for the Cowboys and the Texans. Remember I told you guys yesterday, I was like, man, that Tennessee defense is going to be pretty good. They got the best bump and run corner out there. They just have a lot of outliers. And so I'm starting to look at opponents in the division other than just the Texans and the Cowboys, which we talked a lot about. And I'll give you some nuggets that I've learned in my research about them. And also we'll discuss why the Steelers are such a polarizing team this year. It's this is a very un-Steeler-like offseason. It just feels like. The Steelers are not usually the big topic of conversation when it comes to quarterback competitions. Steelers don't have quarterback competitions. They're the Steelers. They don't even dabble in that, but they literally are having an open quarterback competition, like an audition.
Open quarterback competition. Talk about trading and paying wide receivers.
Yes, right? It's like,
what happened?
What's going on? The Steelers? Yeah, the Steelers talk about trading for Brandon Ayuk, who's a diva, by the way. He's a diva.
They already know he's a diva wide receiver.
You had him. You didn't like divas. You had two of them. You had Santonio Holmes, a diva. He was a Super Bowl MVP. You had obviously, Antonio Brown, diva. You didn't like him. You better bring in Brandon Ayuk, who he loves to play out his drama on social media. Multiple times he has talked about the 49ers and their discussions. He's talked about what they have discussed behind the scenes on social media. Put it on social media himself.
Yeah,
multiple times, and yet the Steelers are like, "That's our guy."
Steelers, and then the other wide receiver is George Pickens, who said, "I'm not blocking downfield."
That's their number one guy. Like, that's the one. Yeah, what is going on? This is not the Steelers organization I know, but maybe times they are changing.
They changed it from Heinz Field, and it's over now.
Right? It's like, whoa. I don't know. It doesn't feel, like I said, we're hearing from Mike Tomlin too, because he's, openly, and I think it's all psychological. I think he's trying to see how these quarterbacks are going to respond, but he's almost like instigating with the quarterbacks. Like he's trying to start an open, like a narrative about a quarterback competition with the Steelers.
Did you see the video of, it was like the first squabble in Steelers camp, and Mike Tomlin's in the background, and they start to fight, and you just see Tomlin smile in the background.
He's like,
yeah. The camera's like zooms in on him smiling in the background. It's great.
I love me somebody. And by the way, what's his name? Is it James Harrison?
Yeah,
he's at camp. He's just there, just roaming around camp, looking
scaring people.
Basically, just looking mean. I'm like, what is he, a coach? Like, what? He's just walking around in like just a sweatsuit, just walking around, looking swole still.
I mean, he was the one they did the article calling him a hitman.
That dude's scary though.
Yeah,
he's among the scariest players in NFL history. Like, he legitimately, like, I don't want to be alone with him. Like, I legitimately be like, what's some people around? I don't know if, you give me the vibes like I'm, I'm in a gin pop. I'm, that you're gonna do something to me. And by the way, what could I do to fight back if he decided to do something to me? I need witnesses around. But we'll get into that. We'll talk about the Steelers. We'll get into some Cowboys discussion. More, like I said, more talking about some of their division opponents. We'll do that. We'll also dive into more NFL news and nuggets. We'll talk about some of the trends that you're going to be looking for upcoming this NFL season that are starting to become more and more widespread, that also have a connection to Texas in that way. So we'll do all of that. But first, let's get updated, let's get educated, let's get informed on all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis in the Horn Headlines.
All right, the Horn Headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the MLB, the Astros took the final regular season matchup with the Rangers 6-4 to win the series and keep the silver boot in Houston. Yusei Kikuchi picked up his first win with the Astros after pitching 5 1/3 innings, allowing 2 runs and striking out 8. The Astros were able to take a 5-0 lead with RBIs from 6 different players in the game before the Rangers made a rally in the 6th to cut the lead to 2. However, they could not fully close the gap. Houston's Zach DeZinzo, who was called up to the majors earlier this week, got his first career hit while coming around to score twice in the game. The Rangers now will wait to take on the Yankees in New York on Friday, while the Astros travel to Boston to take on the Red Sox starting Friday as well. In the NFL preseason, we will see action from the Panthers, who will take on the Patriots, with Drake May making his debut, while Bryce Young will not play in the matchup, and the Lions will face the Giants after both teams were fined $200,000 for multiple fights breaking out of practice earlier this week. Team USA Basketball will take on Serbia at 2 p.m. today for a spot in the gold medal game versus the winner of France versus Germany. This will be the team's third matchup with Serbia, beating them by 26 both times, once in their Abu Dhabi exhibition and once in the group phase. And looking over at the Olympic medal count right now, we are still at USA in the lead of golds with 27 over China's 26. They have 35 silver and 33 bronze for USA as well. The overall medal count at 95 over China's 67. And that is your Horn headlines.
Thank you, Patrick, for the Horn headlines. USA, USA. All right, feeling good about Team USA in their medal count lead right now in the gold and overall medal count. All right, let's get to some NFL discussion here, NFL news, notes, and nuggets. So let's start with the division opponents, and then we'll get to the Steelers and then playing the Texans tomorrow and some of those stories, because a lot of the major headlines right now in the NFL surround the Steelers somehow. I mean, the quarterback competition going on, the Brandon Ayuk story. So we'll get to that a little bit when we go into Raj rant. But I've been doing some research, NFL season coming up, on the division opponents, like for the Cowboys and for the Texans. And I've been and I told you this yesterday though about the Titans. I'm not worried about the Titans actually. Any way challenging the Texans. I think the Texans actually are going to be the class of that division. But the Titans defense actually is going to be pretty interesting with the additions they made just this offseason, whether you're talking about the draft or whether you're talking about, via free agency. They brought in L'Jarius Sneed. They brought in Chidobe Awuzie at corner. So they basically totally remade their secondary.
Yeah.
Because Quandre Diggs is there now too, and Jamal Adams. I imagine that's their starting secondary right now. They got the linebacker Kenneth Murray, who can run. And they have D tackles, Sebastian Joseph Day. They got Savondre Sweat, who they drafted as well. And they got a new DC in Denard Wilson. And if you will notice, something that stood out to me that a few of these players, these new acquisitions have in common, they're outliers. And what I mean by outliers, they all are very, very, their skill sets are very unique, even compared to their peers. Right? L'Jarius Sneed is the best bump and run corner in the league, period. In a league where teams don't play bump and run as much. Why? They're scared as hell of these receivers. Have you seen these receivers lately? The NFL receivers are just freaky, man. This is a bunch of X-Men out there. So, a lot of teams are just scared to play. Now, teams are going to have to start playing more bump and run. We'll get into this. We start talking about some of those NFL trends because the quick game is increasing. That's your 0 to 3 step drops. Teams are 60% of the NFL's passing game is quick game, is 0 to 3 step drops by the quarterback. That's your hitch, your slant, your quick out, your smoke, your screens, your tunnel screen, your bubble screen, all that kind of stuff. Right. So, with that being the case, and it being more of an RPO league, with RPO is just quick game plus run game, you want to take the quick game away. The only way you can do that is by coming up and bumping the wide receivers, playing bump and run. And as you can play bump and run. Look what Texas did, right? Last year, Texas started playing more bump and run on the field and the boundary side against Tech and against Oklahoma State and against Washington. It took away a lot of the inside breaking routes, took away a lot of the quick game, but they left themselves vulnerable to the deep ball. Oklahoma State started hitting them on the deep ball. Washington hit them on the deep ball. And that's the last thing you want. If you're an NFL defensive coordinator, that'll get you fired. That gets people benched. So no, we don't want to do that. So a lot of teams are reluctant to play bump and run, but you're going to have to start finding a healthy mix. You'll see, my prediction, the bump and run rates will increase. It's the only way to take away some of this quick game and take away some of the RPO stuff. So L'Jarius Sneed has a very niche expertise. Best bump and run corner in the league. And they say he's the best coverage corner, but bump and run, that's him. That's what he does. Chidobe Awuzie, I don't know if he fits that. Quandre Diggs fits it. Quandre Diggs is one of the only players in the league that can play corner, can play nickel, slot corner, and play safety. Guys, I guarantee that's probably, maybe 15% of the DBs can play and has played every position in the secondary at the college and the pro level. So he's ultimate. You got the ultimate multiplicity with this dude. I think he's best at safety. He's probably made his most plays at safety. I talked to him about this. He likes nickel because he's an action junkie. He's like an adrenaline junkie. So he likes being in the action, and nickel, you're right there. And nickel, like I said, you're basically in the you're in a quantum realm, man. There's no telling what you're going to be doing from down to down. One down you can be blitzing, one down you can be taking on a pulling offensive lineman, one down you're covering a tight end, one down you're covering a wide receiver, another down you're dropping back in the zone coverage, another down you're at linebacker depth as basically a forced run defender filling a gap. Man, you got to do everything. And he kind of likes that. At safety, he said he was a bit bored, but he made more plays at safety. That's because he's a football investigator and he got more clues that you can dissect and diagnose and examine when you're playing safety as opposed to nickel and where everything happens quickly. And corner, he didn't like corner either because corner really and truly people don't really realize this. You only get a few shots at action at corner a game. I mean, the truth is you probably going to get how many targets? Maybe eight targets a game. You get a ton of targets if you're playing the corner. Now they picking on you. That's no other thing. Then you probably getting a lot of just picking on you. The truth is you'll probably get 8 targets, something like that a game. You're trying to win more than your fair share and not give up, big explosive plays. You probably see more these days with the passing game, but between targets to tight ends and targets to running backs and the other wide receivers on the field. The truth is that you at corner, that whatever corner spot you at, you'll probably get 8 targets, something like that, at the most. And you got to make the most out of it. You got to make the most of those opportunities. So, you can get bored out there. And Quandre would get bored out there. So, I don't know what he's going to play with him. Safety is what he's best at. Is where he's made the most splash plays. But, hell, you can move that guy around. That's what makes him unique. T'Vondre Sweat. T'Vondre Sweat's the biggest D tackle in the league. Period. There's no D tackle in the league bigger than T'Vondre Sweat. When he was drafted, he became the biggest D tackle in the league. That's pretty unique and niche. I just got a lot of unique athletes. Like there's just, that could present a problem. Like that could present Jamal Adams. Listen, Jamal Adams is basically a linebacker. I don't even know why they still call him a safety. He's basically a linebacker, but he can play safety and you can use him as a big nickel, essentially. Like we can use essentially 3 safeties and they call it a big nickel, but it's a third safety instead of a third corner on the field. He can be that guy for you. And they have the corner they drafted not too long ago. I forget his name. Supposed to be a really good player. And his name escapes me. They drafted a corner in the first round not too long ago. Yeah. So they have a corner. So it's possible they could be moving one of these other guys around potentially.
Yeah.
As
if you look at Denard Wilson and his history, he's basically been a DB coach coming through, but he had Jamal Adams being all pro twice with the Jets.
I didn't realize that.
He then went to the Eagles and had James Bradbury being all pro, and then had CJ Gardner-Johnson, moved him to safety and led the league in interceptions. Then he went to the Ravens. He made Kyle Hamilton an all pro at safety.
Wow.
So he has had some really good safeties play when in his secondaries.
Wow.
So
that's good research.
So that's something, if you look at what he's done, and when you talk about what you've been talking about of using guys differently in these kind of outliers, he's had those kind of players where he took Jamal Adams and he led the league in sacks and tackles for loss for a defensive back safety and the Jets. And then CJ Gardner-Johnson was a slot corner, and he said, no, we're going to put you at safety. And then he had 12 interceptions that season. And so I think that there's been, and we look at what the Ravens did last year when he was on that team, and they led the league in takeaways.
Yeah.
So I think he's going to play a very aggressive style of defense.
Man, that's fantastic. That you just blew my mind with that. I didn't even know that, but you're right, and that makes sense because I saw a quote from Quandre Diggs about why he decided to go to Titans. I think he had a couple of other offers that he was considering too. And he said it was because of Denard Wilson.
I mean, he's got some all-pro safeties.
He was like, he really wanted me here. And that was basically why I chose them and I wanted to be there also. But he said he really wanted me. And I guarantee kind of what you just broke down there, he probably had a pitch for him about how he wanted to use them.
Yeah.
Had a vision for how he wanted to use Quandre. Because Quandre, I've talked to Quandre about all this kind of stuff too. And so Quandre is well aware. Quandre's the guy that basically admitted to me that he believes that the NFL is indeed trying to devalue the safety market. Like they basically tried to devalue the safety market. And he admitted that. He said, so in NFL circles, they talk about the same stuff kind of that we've talked about. But that's a great nugget there, Patrick. I did not realize that. That's a man. I didn't realize he had been with all those squads either. Okay,
Yeah, because
so
he
he's got a
moved
history with
around
both
a
guys.
lot.
He did, but that's good.
But
That's
yeah,
good
I
for him.
mean, he started out. Jeff Fisher was the guy who actually brought him up as in the St. Louis, in
Yeah,
the St.
Jeff
Louis
Fisher.
L.A. Rams,
Well,
and then
Jeff
he
Fisher
left
is a
that.
defensive guy, though, isn't he? Jeff
Yeah,
Fisher's a defensive guy,
and
isn't he?
then
So that kind of makes sense.
well, we know he's not an offensive guy,
Right.
but
That's true. Yes, we do. Yes, yes,
but
sir.
yeah, then he went to the Jets for like 4 years. He was at the Eagles for a few years, and then was with the Ravens last year. So this is his first play calling because he's basically been a DB coach for most of it.
He's been DB because of some good coordinators, though.
Yeah, no,
Some
yeah,
pretty
but that's what I'm
impressive
saying. So this will be his first play calling. So there will be some bumps in the road. But from what you said of laying out the types of players he's brought in, it clearly seems like he had a game plan, which is probably one of the reasons he got the job. Was he said, "All right, in today's market, these are the guys we need to target, and no one else is targeting them as much, and we can put together something that's special and different." And build a calling card. And
Yeah.
and I think Tavondre Sweat kind of works into that as well of why you want to get a guy like him because he's a unique player. He's the biggest
player.
DT. He's the biggest defensive tackle. He's going to be able to make waves for us. So we need to just put together all these special players that are different and try and build an identity that way defensively. Whether it works or not, I mean, he's
That's a
in
good point.
look, and also you're in a really tough division with a lot of good young quarterbacks. I mean,
Yeah.
you talk about
Dynamic quarterbacks. Yeah.
you got to
Anthony
figure out how to guard
Richardson,
Anthony Richardson, CJ
Stroud.
Stroud,
Yeah.
and then Trevor Lawrence is,
Trevor Lawrence.
even though he's not the best, he's still a good quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. You might need a unique defense.
Yeah.
One that is, I'm with you on that because you have to build, I would say you have to build your team to win the division. So to win that ecosystem, whatever it is, like every division is a little bit different. And for the Texans, I'm with you. Sorry, for the Titans, it's more about can you neutralize all these quarterbacks you play because they're all so different but really dynamic.
Yeah, and if you say we have young quarterbacks in this division, can we show them looks that they're not seeing anywhere else, and try and get takeaways and try and give the ball back to our offense?
Oh, that reminds me of a quote because we're gonna go to the break here because there's a quote that I want to bring up. You talked about the young quarterbacks and the looks, and it's JJ McCarthy. That's who it was. They asked JJ McCarthy, what is he looking forward to in the preseason game on Saturday, and he said, "quote a vanilla defense, honestly." Because Brian Flores is calling the plays there, and I guess he's just been throwing all types of stuff at him. He's just like, man, I just want to see some cover 2, simple cover 3 would be nice. Brian Flores, but that's kind of the point you're getting to about what Denard Robinson wants to do. That's what he wants to do. Denard wants to be able to throw a lot of different things at him, and the more unique your defensive pieces are, the more creative you can be about how freaky your exotic looks are going to be. Good stuff there, Patrick. Well done. All right, we come back. We'll get into Rod's rant. That we'll just continue doing this. We'll talk about the Cowboys opponents a little bit. Learn something about Jaden Daniels. I'll tell you, give you a little nugget about him. The Cowboys got to look out for, and we'll talk about what's going on with the Eagles. There's something happening with these Eagles. I don't know if it's good or bad. It could be good. It could be bad. We'll discuss that on the side right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the horn. back to the Rodcast. Time to get to Rod's rant of the day. Like I said, I've been looking at division opponents now for the Cowboys and Texans. I feel like we talked to Cowboys and Texans a lot. Like we know, pretty much what the identity of those teams are going to be. Breaking down the rosters a little bit. We've been doing that all off season. So starting to look at the opponents, and I was looking at Washington because we were talking the other day that you threw out the topic of the day, Patrick, about the NFC East division and where the Cowboys are going to finish in the division. Started thinking to myself, yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be the Eagles and the Cowboys. I'm pretty confident that's what the division is going to come down to. But if there's a team that could surprise, could really, kind of throw things into chaos, it would be Washington maybe. And it's because there's so much familiarity now with all three of those teams because there's a little incestuous storyline happening. Dan Quinn knows the Cowboys intimately because he was there so long, so he knows the roster, he knows the weaknesses of the players. He knows the system now with the Tex Coast system with Dak and Mike McCarthy, but they know him too. And they know a lot of the players there because he took a lot of the players from the Cowboys, so they know the Cowboys. They know those players really well. And then you have Kellen Moore, who's now the offensive coordinator for the Eagles, and they both know Kellen Moore really well, but Kellen Moore knows them pretty well too. He's not that far removed from being with the Dallas Cowboys and knowing Dan Quinn really well. Oh man, it's just fascinating. So it's really how those three. I think the Giants are out of it. I'm sorry. I think Daniel Jones. I think they already know they need to move on from Daniel Jones, and they just haven't made the tough decision. They haven't had that awkward conversation yet.
I think they have. It just you can't get out of his contract until next year. I think is the bigger
That's
issue.
true. Yeah, you're right. But everybody knows that hey, they got to get a new quarterback before they can be in this conversation. That's why we talking about Washington. It's literally because they got a new quarterback, and we're like, okay, they got a shot.
No, they literally had to tell Daniel Jones when there's a fight at practice, you don't get in it. You're the quarterback. Because he just jumped into like the pile at a practice, and you're like, dude, the red jersey, man. Don't hurt yourself.
That's how desperate you are to get some street cred. You got to go jumping in the fight. Exactly. It's like everybody knows quarterback. You ain't supposed to fight. What are you doing? What are you doing, man? And I agree. Don't get me started. But as I said, they're out of it, and you're right. So they're probably 2 years removed because they got to try to wait out this contract and then tank, and then They probably
they're going to take this year, and then hopefully get a quarterback next year, and then
they don't even need to tank. They're just going to be bad. Like it's like going to be a tank job. It's going to be bad. But I actually think Brian Daboll's a decent coach, but different discussion. Okay, so the familiarity, that's why I think, the Washington team is a wild card, right? The Washington Command, they're a bit of a wild card, period. But also Jaden Daniels is a wild card. So let me give you a couple of stats on Jaden Daniels. This dude scrambled as much or more than any other quarterback in college football in the last 10 years. If you look at most scrambles in a Power 5 season, dating back to 2014, Drake May actually is number one. He's at 2022 season. He has 76 scrambles, a lot. But then 2 and 3 are both Jaden Daniels. 70 in 2022. He had 67 in 2019. When the play breaks down, he likes to get busy. And I'm telling you, that can be a problem when the play breaks down. Do you know the most efficient play in football right now is the quarterback scramble? The quarterback scramble is by far the most efficient play. It's getting 8.5 yards per play on average is the quarterback scramble. Plays broken down. We've already had a great, defensive coverage call. We got all your weapons covered up. The pass rush is starting to get home. We've collapsed the pocket. And yet this dude, you see it happening all the time. Hey, found a lane. Got him an easy 7-8 yards. You go, damn. It's exhausting. It's essentially you're defending, multiple plays in one. I have to defend the initial play when, it might be just a pass and defend the quarterback as being a pocket passer, defend the weapons downfield. And then that initial play breaks down, deteriorates, and then another play starts. The second play, the second reaction play. And that's when you're Patrick Mahomes of the world. Sometimes this dude, He's then the scramble drill happens, and there's a whole other route combination. There's a scramble drill. Literally, there's a drill quarterbacks and wide receivers have. Play breaks down. If it's this type of play, do this. If you see me on this side of the field, you're instructed to go here. That's the scramble drill. So there actually is a second play baked into every play. Scramble drill. And then there's a third play. Say the scramble drill ain't working. Quarterback decides to keep it, and then you got to defend him as a runner. Sometimes that's Lamar Jackson. Sometimes that's Josh Allen. You know what I mean? You're thankful when it's C.J. Stroud, and he's still pretty damn good. He got functional mobility, or a Dak Prescott. So essentially, these days you're defending the regular pass play. You're defending 3 plays in one. Think about how difficult that is. And you're going to be doing it. Patrick Mahomes is probably, in my opinion, the most elite at it, because the second reaction play in the scramble drill, that's where he's probably even more dangerous than being in the pocket. And then he actually can run. He just doesn't do it until the playoffs. He don't start running into the playoffs. Like Patrick Mahomes, like, nah, not until that's actually something on the line. I'm not going to risk it. I'll just throw it away, do something else. But when it's something on the line, Pat starts running around all over the place. You're like, this dude's that's why Jerry's like, he's an option quarterback, triple option, Pat Mahomes. I'm like, no, but I feel you. He does. Okay. Anyway, but it's the most efficient play. That's why, because that's the third option. I've defended the first play, the initial play. Then I've defended the scramble drill. And now I got to defend you guys scrambling. Okay, yes, I might defend it, but you might get 6-7 yards. Because by that time, everybody's dropped back. Defensive line is exhausted from rushing. And that's why you get 8.5 yards per play. Guys, the second quarterback ranking in yards per attempt was Tua. He was at 8.3. Your scramble is getting you more yards than your second highest yards per attempt. C.J. Stroud was at 8.2. He was third. Brock Purdy led. He was at 9-something. So Brock Purdy. He's the only quarterback whose yards per attempt were higher than the average yards per play on a quarterback scramble. He scrambles a lot, which means you got to account for it. You got to put a spy on him. Well, putting that spy on him is also a problem, because that is numbers devoted to him. That now they're going to have numbers in the passing game. They're going to have the numbers advantage, because you're going to be devoted to put a spy on him. And just because you got a spy on him, that still don't mean you're going to get him. I mean, you still got just have a spy on him. You better make sure you can still tackle him in the open field, and he is very elusive. So that to me is, and I'll give you another couple of numbers on him. How about this? And then we'll move on and talk about the Eagles real quick. Jaden Daniels scrambles against Power 5 teams. LSU had a 27% explosive play rate on Jaden Daniels scrambles against Power 5 teams. 27% of the time, it was explosive play when he was scrambling. Yeah. So just throwing it out there, that could be a problem. I don't know, something's happening with the Eagles right now, with the Eagles and Jalen Hurts. That article came out yesterday, and he's saying, we brought it up on the show just a little bit, but essentially the article was describing a rift, a schism between Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni. And it basically talked about, several sources detailed the prolonged strain between Hurts and Sirianni during the 2023 season, differences in offensive philosophy. Said Hurts would instruct the offense to go off script compared to the play. He and A.J. Brown admitted that they called their own play a few times. Hurts wanted more control of the team and the offense, and that's going to happen now. Kellen Moore is the offensive coordinator. Jalen Hurts admitted or indicated 95% of the offense now is new inventory, which is a lot. And Kellen Moore, as we pointed out yesterday, is going to be the 11th or 10th, play caller that he's had. And I believe Kellen Moore's the 11th. He's had 10 play callers since his time as a freshman in college, going back to Lane Kiffin, and back then in 2016. He'll have his 10th offensive play caller or coordinator. And I think that honestly has something to do with his frustration with Nick Sirianni. I think at this point, and he did something, and this is how I know Jalen Hurts is now trying to go from being a game manager to a game executive. If you're a game executive in the NFL as a quarterback, you almost carry your offense with you. Like Tom Brady did when he took his offense to the Bucs, or Aaron Rodgers taking his offense to the Jets. That's why Nathaniel Hackett comes with him. He's basically come the curator of Aaron Rodgers' offense. Peyton Manning had his own. I think Dak's Texco's offense, essentially, that was them saying, all right, this is going to be Dak's offense. It's Dak's offense. All right, we're just going to build it around Dak. And Dak's now been in the league long enough. He's held the most, I think, tenured NFC quarterback. He's been in the league long enough. I'm talking with his team, with the same team. He's been in the league long enough where Dak can advise us on what he's most comfortable with, and what works best for him. And I think Jalen Hurts is reaching that point. And here's another example of it. And this comes from the article. With the playoffs approaching and the hunt for improvement unending, Jalen Hurts made an unusual move. He called former Giants defensive coordinator Wink Martindale, who is now the Michigan defensive coordinator, who had parted ways with New York following Week 18. He said, "I've been doing this for 40 years," said Wink Martindale. And he said, "and it's the first time I've had an opposing quarterback call me up." I thought it was pretty cool. The guy called. And it shows you what kind of pro he really is. He's just looking at every angle that he can to get better. The phone call lasted about half an hour. Martindale told ESPN they discussed weaknesses in Philadelphia's protection and how New York tried to game plan him. He is now in charge of the protection because Kelsey are now retired and Kelly Moore. Now Jalen Hurts, he sets the protection now too. And he's calling Wink Martindale like, "Hey, man, I don't like the protection that's being set for me all the time. I want to set my own damn protection, okay? It's me. It's my butt on the line. My body's at risk. Let me set the protection." And so he's taking more control of the offense. It's going to be more of I guarantee you, more of a Jalen Hurts-friendly offense, but he's going to have more control over it at the line of scrimmage and setting the protection. And I think this move was all about him, gaining more control. And I think the organization, they're empowering him. They want him to do it. Like I said, when he admitted, one team source basically said that when they were talking about him changing plays and him and A.J. Brown admitting that they improvised and called their own plays, he said one team source described it as Hurts trying to play hero ball. Another put it this way: he was trying to prove that he was worth $250 million every throw. I think that's what's happening in Philly. I think he's now frustrated, and he knows enough football conceptually because he's had 10 different offensive systems and play callers since he's been in college. His dad's a coach. So I think now he knows enough football conceptually. All the terminology is different, team to team and all that. But he knows enough conceptually now where he believes he can construct at least the foundation of an offense, like basic principles. And when you come in, build your offense around these principles. So these principles are now, for me, they are gospel. Like as a quarterback now, I know when I'm successful, and I know what helps me be successful and be my best version of myself. And it's operating within this structure with these principles, whatever in place, whatever they may be. And I think that's why he's becoming kind of a game executive, setting his own protection, calling his own audibles at the line of scrimmage, and ultimately, like I said, calling the defensive coordinators that oppose him, which I don't think I've ever heard of either, and trying to get their opinion on how he can set the protections better as a quarterback. He's taking over. Like I said, I don't know if it's going to be a good thing or a bad thing, but that's why him and Nick Sirianni are butting heads, is because he wants to be an executive now, and he wants to be treated as such. It's my offense. It's my offense, period. I'm setting the I'm setting the protections, and if I want to, I'm gonna change the damn plays. You better call a play I like. We might as well compromise on this, because if you don't call a play I like, I'm just gonna change the play. So let's compromise and let's call a play I like. By the way, the owner likes me because he signed me to a big deal, so I'm gonna be here. I'm making more than you. I'm a game executive. I like it. It's your fate. It's your legacy. You want to, if you want to cook the meal, you want to buy the groceries. He wants more control. I got no problem with that. With his work ethic, I got no problem with it. CJ Stroud want to do that with the Texans? I'd be like, go ahead, young man, because that's what the greats have done. That's what Brady does. That's what Patrick Mahomes is doing. Why do you think they added all those receivers? He wanted Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He didn't even work out. And they're like, yeah, it's all right. Whatever you want, Pat. We'll draft it. It's like, we don't care. And that'll be Patrick Mahomes' offense. When you think Andy Reid leaves and he retires, that's gonna be Patrick Mahomes' offense. They're gonna bring in an offensive coordinator, whoever he is, and be like, hey, Patrick Mahomes, what do you want to run? All right, let's run all this up. At that point, he's gonna be 10-year vet in the league. It's going to be Pat's offense. I don't know why I'm calling him Pat like I know him. It's going to be Patrick Mahomes' offense. I feel like we all know him, though. Pat's offense. But, that, you know what I mean? That's going to be his offense. All right, let's go to break. We come back. We'll get into what the facts, what the stats right here on the Rodcast featuring featuring Patrick Mahomes, featuring my man Patrick Davis. Lifestyle logo, Rod Davis, going back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get to what the facts, what the stats, right here on the Rodcast. All right, I got a couple of factoids to share with you here on the show. Okay, how about this? The number of players earning at least $20 million a season per position. You would think it'd be quarterbacks. It used to be quarterbacks. Wide receivers now, with 21 players making at least $20 million a year, there are more players making $20 million a year at the wide receiver position than quarterback. Quarterbacks at 20, wide receivers at 21. Isn't that crazy?
That is.
Like, it just happened so quickly. It happened so fast. Like I said, 4 years ago, guys, in 2020, there were just 4 receivers making $20 million a year. And now, remember the Cowboys? They didn't want to pay Amari Cooper. That's why they traded him. Like, $20 million a year.
That's crazy.
That's wild, man. And now there are 21 of them making $20 million a year. More than the quarterbacks. That's crazy. Interior D lineman. I've been telling you guys, interior D lineman is a premium position. 13 interior D linemen now making $20+ million a year. That is more than edge rushers. Edge rushers have 12. Try to tell you. Offensive tackle, 10. 7 left tackles, 3 right tackles. Offensive guards, 4. So now we get into the cutoff of the premium positions. Tackle is probably that's the last of the premium positions because that's the only The last two positions do have double-digit players making at least $20 million a year. Wide receiver 21, quarterback 20, interior D line 13, edge rushers 12, offensive tackles 10. And here we get to the non-premium positions. Everything else is offensive guard 4. Only 4 guards making that much money. Cornerback, I don't know how cornerback has been devalued. Those sons of only 3 cornerbacks making at least $20 million a year. How is that possible? They're the guys who cover the wide receivers. Like just the value of the wide receivers, you would think would increase the value of the defender. That's what happened with like tackle and edge. It was like, well, edge rush tackle was a value. Edge rusher was a valuable position. Or quarterback was. Well, you need somebody to go after the quarterback. Then that's edge rusher. Need somebody to block the edge rusher. Well, that's the tackle. And so all of those positions increase in value. Wide receiver, right? Wide receiver connected to the quarterback. That increase in value. And I've told you guys time and time again about the interior D line and why that's valued now, because teams want to play with lighter boxes, big war daddies, whether through girth mass or through just sheer will and domination. They can demand a double team. And if interior D linemen are good enough to demand a double team, then you need to pay them, especially if they are elite pass rushers and run stuffers. Then you pay those guys because they flip the numbers advantage for you. And you can play with a light box to defend the passing game. And all these elite receivers, you can play the light box and devote numbers to the passing game. Because that guy, Travatre Sweat, if he's elite, or if it take Chris Jones, he's elite because it's gonna take 2 of your offensive guards to block my 1D tackle. And if you don't, he's gonna wreak havoc on your offense. It's gonna take 2 of them. So those guys are worth 2 players on offense. So you pay them. But cornerback, I don't know why cornerback isn't worth more money. Only 3 cornerbacks making at least $20 million. Linebacker and safety, 1 linebacker, 1 safety, making at least $20 million. So cornerback between the secondary overall, between the back 7 of the defense. Like, think about this, ladies and gentlemen. The back 7 of your defense in the NFL, you have now a total of 5 guys making at least $20 million a year in the back 7 of the NFL, period. Isn't that crazy? Like that just lets you know they have devalued defense. They've given up. Like, nah, we're not gonna pay. But I think a lot of it is the youth movement in the back 7, especially in the secondary. I think there's a lot of good young talented wide receiver. It ain't stopping them from paying those guys. Like, we'll see. Because when Stingley and Sauce Gardner and all these really young cornerbacks are up for a deal, we'll see if all that changes, because some really good young DBs out there too. But there you go. All right, that's what the facts, what the stats. All right, we come back. We'll get into the big story on the 40 acres. CJ Baxter being out for the season. We'll talk about what that means for the Texas football season. We'll also get into some Olympic coverage and discussion, all of that and more right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a new theme Thursday. My man Patrick does a great job with all the musically themed days of the week. But on a new theme Thursday, he comes up with a really creative theme based on something pop culturally relevant. Could be a birthday, could be something anniversary of some kind. But because the Olympics are happening, and he is like myself very interested in the breakdancing competition starting up this weekend in the Olympics. He is dedicating New Theme Thursday to the breakdancing competition, playing songs that he thinks or may be involved in the breakdancing competition, or at least some of the best breakdancing songs that we have to offer. So that's what's happening today. And I love this one, man. Little Rock, Kim, that's pretty
Eric B.
badass.
and Rakim.
That's it. I didn't know that. I didn't know that could be in the breakdancing, like in the breakdancing songs. I didn't know that. Pretty good. Okay. They play this, then whole new respect for the Olympic, just the culture there, period. Whether you're talking about whatever country decides to play it. And we still don't know. I still don't know exactly how they're going to judge it. The play-by-play. I can't wait to see the play-by-play people and how they describe it, because there's no way they're going to be familiar with it. Like, who the hell is doing the play-by-play of breakdancing? So they're going to sound somewhat awkward too, because they just don't do that a lot. Nobody does breakdancing play-by-play. I don't even know what terms you're going to be dropping there that are going to be able to translate to the gin pop. Like, I don't know. Was that pop lock? I mean, I don't know. It's going to sound crazy. It's going to sound like a movie, like a parody of a script for a comedy or something.
I want to see the crowd going with the oohs and ahs.
Yeah,
like in gymnastics, someone does a really good move and everybody goes, ooh. But I want to, do they do that, or?
Oh, there'll probably be some flipping it, because there is some very athletic, like dynamic moves in breakdancing. Like, you know what I mean? So there are. I mean, so you'll probably some of that where people are doing like handstands and stuff. Like, I think that's part of it. Trust me, I haven't seen the people breakdance in a long time, but I remember, I think handstands are a big part of it. We're gonna do the spinning move on the floor. That's like a breakdancing move. You remember?
Yeah, the spin, and then you in with your hand on your head.
If somebody you're right. They got to be a shout out to the old school on some of this, man. Like they got to do some of the old moves at least a little bit. I don't want to see all new breakdancing moves. I want to see a little bit of the old stuff. So we'll see.
The outfits. What are they gonna wear?
The outfits. Like, wasn't the robot a part of the breakdancing term?
I believe so.
The robot on every now and then. So I have no idea. I can't. Popping and locking, I think, actually kind of was kind of an offshoot, if you will, of the breakdancing culture too. I think it is. So it's kind of a subsidiary, if you will. So, well, no, I can't wait. It's going to be great. I believe the last hour of the show tomorrow, we will have breakdancing to discuss, because it'll be on the Olympic coverage. It'll be on officially. Yes. I got to find out what channel it's on too, so I can make sure that I'm watching it live. We can give you our play-by-play of it. All right, so that's going to be good. Also, my man Patrick comes up with the topic for the Big Fat Poll of the Day. That is posted. You can go to the X account, the Horn ATX. Go check it out for yourself. And it is Longhorn football related. Matter of fact, it'll lead us right into our discussion about the loss of C.J. Baxter for the season for the Longhorns. But Patrick, give the folks the topic for the Big Fat Poll of the Day.
How many 300-yard rushers will Texas have this season now that C.J. Baxter's out? Will they run the ball more? They've had 3 300-yard rushers twice in Sark's 3 years at Texas. Jaden Blue did it last year. Keelan Robinson did it in his first year. They both got 300 yards as the third back. Will there be 3 backs that do it? Will there be 4 backs that do it? Or is it going to be 2? Or is it just Jaden Blue's year and it's him and or bust, and they're just going to throw the ball more and it's one? Let us know what you think. It's up on at the Horn ATX on X.
Yeah, it's a lot of factors there. I think the biggest factor is probably the development of the young guys, how quickly they come along, and they'll start testing that today. So I think there'll be a lot of different things the coaches want to see from them before they earn trust for more playing time. But they need one of those guys, Jarek Gibson or Christian Clark. They need one of those guys to, elevate their game a little bit and do it soon. And I think the other thing will be next season, because if those guys in training camp are starting to prove themselves and earn trust, that's a really good sign that early on in the season they'll play, and then they're only going to get better the more reps they get.
Yes.
But if they're not ready to get quality reps by the end of training camp, as one of the rotational running backs, then that's not necessarily a great sign. Obviously they didn't do enough in camp to earn trust of the coaches, and then we couldn't predict a timeline on when during the season you'll start to see them in regular rotation. And but once it's the season, we're done. Coaches are done with development, guys. They're game planning. I mean, guys are getting better, but they're done focusing on development right now. They're about literally winning games, game planning week to week. That's what they're focused on. So it won't be about competition at that point. They'll just be about trying to get the best guys on the field. So I think this is going to be a big next 2 weeks for them. It's going to be huge for these.
And we'll see. I'm sure there'll be plenty of questions on Monday about the scrimmage this weekend that's supposed to be happening, and who had the ball and who was carrying it well and how did everybody look running the ball. And I'm sure there'll be plenty of questions about that on Monday.
Yeah. And honestly, we'll get to it here obviously in a second when we talk about the loss of CJ Baxter and what it means. But I think that's probably the biggest factor. And then, are you blowing out teams next season? Because if you're blowing teams out and getting a lead on them, then maybe there's a better chance those guys will get in there and just get some of those carries, just trying to put the game away. But I don't know that either. Unless the reason that Keelan Robinson, you said it was 2021 that he got the
yes,
he had already earned Sark's trust.
Yeah,
think about it. He with him at Bama.
Yeah,
he knew the system. He knew the system already. Sark knew him. Came here with Sark. That's a lot of trust. Bijan and Rojo, I mean, don't take long, right? I mean, take a couple of days to go. Okay, that guy's better than everybody else, and that guy. Rojo is the best leader on the team, and one of our better players. So trust all the way through. That's why. And then in 2022, I think they would just focus on Bijan and Rojo. Once Sark figured out, okay, these are my two guys. They just focused on, and I don't blame him for that, by the way.
Yeah, Jonathan Brooks was third that year with 197.
Exactly, right. And then 2023, well, you had the injury to Jay Brooks is what really got the other guys, close to that 300. You knew CJ Baxter was going to get there, but then the Jonathan Brooks thing allowed Jaden Blue to arise and have a 100-yard game. Boom, gives him there. But honestly, those guys they already been in the system, so they had earned trust, right? Jay Brooks had been here a while, so Sark already knew him. He had been here for a minute. Jaden Blue had been on campus. Jaden Blue left high school early to come on campus, so he had been here already.
Yeah, but I mean, CJ Baxter hadn't last year.
CJ Baxter had last year, but he was also the best running back in the country.
I get that. But yeah,
what I mean? Like he was a prodigy. He was supposed to be, he's a 5-star. He was supposed to come in and do that. But you're right. CJ Baxter is what should give you hope for Jarrett Gibson and Christian Clark. Because you're like, well, CJ Baxter didn't take him. He won a damn starting job in training camp against Jonathan Brooks. So your hope is that one of these other guys, if that happens, then all of this is moot. It doesn't matter. Like, we good. If one of those guys can start getting into the rotation and earning the coach's trust in training camp, then I think, the running back room, and as I've said before, it's an elite culture of excellence in that running back room. If any position group can, withstand and sustain an injury, it would be this position group, the running back room, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But first, let's hit the horn headlines here before we dive deeper into the CJ Baxter conversation. Let's get educated, updated, and informed on all the top stories of the day with my man Patrick Davis and the horn headlines.
All right, your horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the MLB, the Astros took the final regular season matchup with the Rangers 6-4 to win the series and keep the silver boot in Houston. Yusei Kikuchi picks up his first win with the Astros after pitching 5 1/3 innings, allowing 2 runs and striking out 8. The Astros were able to take a 5-0 lead with RBIs from 6 different players in the game before the Rangers made a rally in the 6th to cut the lead to 2. However, they could never fully close the gap. Houston's Zach DeZinzo, who was called up to the majors earlier this week, got his first hit of his career while coming around to score twice in the game. The Rangers now wait to take on the Yankees in New York on Friday, while the Astros travel to Boston to take on the Red Sox starting Friday as well. In NFL preseason action, the Panthers will take on the Patriots with Drake May making his debut, while Bryce Young will not play in the matchup. And the Lions will face the Giants after both teams were fined $200,000 for multiple fights breaking out at joint practices earlier this week. And Team USA basketball will take on Serbia at 2 p.m. today for a spot in the gold medal game versus the winner of France versus Germany. This will be the team's third matchup with Serbia, beating them by 26 both times. And once in their Abu Dhabi exhibition game and once in the group phase. And looking at the Olympic medal count, right now USA still in the lead with golds, 27 golds to China's 26, and good leads in silver and bronze with 35 silver, 33 bronze, and 95 to 67 total medals count for USA. And that is your Horn headlines.
All right, Patrick, thank you for the Horn headlines. Appreciate those. Of course, one of the big headlines is an unfortunate one, and it's about C.J. Baxter. The team released a simple statement yesterday addressing the injury, and the statement read, Texas sophomore running back C.J. Baxter sustained a knee injury in practice on Tuesday, will undergo surgery, and will be out for the season. So that it was simple and to the point. I think the worst case scenario that everyone feared yesterday ended up coming to fruition. And I'll just say this, just to start off the discussion, because I know it can get pretty negative pretty quick, and I understand why. I mean, you are losing one of your better weapons on offense. But by the way, this is why Sark is paid the big bucks. I would say coaches are problem solvers, and the problems are going to present themselves in a different way. But as a coach, it's up to you to figure out a solution and come up with solutions. And I think Sark's going to do a good job of that. But this running back room, guys, it's a special running back room. It is. Whether you're talking about historically, or you're talking about recently, it's in it for a reason. Not only because of the talent, but overall the culture of the room. Tashard Choice, one of the better running back coaches in the country. I mean, I don't know a running back coach in the country that can brag about recruiting and developing and coaching 2 first-round running backs who were drafted in the same draft. That they were both like, that's because I don't know how often that happens or if it's ever happened. Maybe it has. It doesn't happen very often, right? That's what kind of coach he is in terms of the running back position. The coach before that in that room, Stan Drayton, ended up skipping the coordinator step and ended up becoming a head coach from a position coach because of the clout that he was able to gain because of the excellence and achievement in that running back room. Right, you had you've had the first running back off the board in the NFL draft the last 2 years. The only other school to do that was Alabama, and they did it I think like 2011 and 2012. You're the only school in the last 2 years that can say they've had multiple running backs invited to the combine in back-to-back years the last 2 years, and multiple running backs drafted in the NFL draft in back-to-back years the last 2 years. Nobody else can say that. You've got the second most running backs on NFL rosters right now behind Georgia. I think you'll surpass Georgia in a couple of years with the way the running back room is looking right now in Texas. And, historically, this has also been the case. I would put Texas running back room historically and recently up against any position room with any program in the country. I'll take my Earl Campbell and Ricky Williams against whatever you got. And the Cedric Bensons and the Jamal Charles and the Bijan Robinson goes on and on. I mean, running back I don't know if anybody can claim it over Texas. They may have as many, they ain't got more. And that's like I said, historically that's the case, but I think it's also the case recently. That room is it's something special happening in that room. That your initial leadership that allowed Sark to turn around the Texas program started in that room. It was Rojo, right? The selflessness of Rojo, who came from the quarterback position and say, "Yeah, I'll play running back," because there's something special in that room. Like, I'll play running back. I'll do it. And then he ends up being, a dynamic impact player. Obviously from on the field, but also what he did in that locker room. Like I said, it's something about that room, man. That room. The truth is Jordan Whittington became your culture bearer next season after Rojo leaves. He started in that room. He came in as running back. He started in that room. Like I said, it's guys, it's the room. I trust the room. I trust the culture of that room. I trust the coach, but I trust the culture of that room. Last year is a prime example. CJ Baxter in training camp wins that job. 5-star running back coming in. Gets dinged up. Jay Brooks takes the job. Jay Brooks becomes one of the best running backs in the country, if not the best running back in the country. Should have won the Doak Walker Award if he didn't get hurt. First running back drafted in the draft last year. And when he got hurt, was the season over? A lot of people I thought that would be a drop-off. Well, Jaden Blue and Cedric Baxter picked it right up, and both of those guys ended up having 100-yard games. It's, like I said, it's a next man up culture in that room. They've always had great talent. Guys, even when Texas was bad, they've been producing good running backs. Texas was bad and had Malcolm Brown, he undrafted free agent up playing in the league, Fozzie Whitaker, Deontay Foreman. Texas wasn't even making bowl games. Deontay Foreman out there winning the dope. Like Texas always had good backs, guys. Always had really good running backs. Whether they were highly touted, highly rated, or whether they were underrated. I don't know how it's gonna look. Like I said, I trust Chick-fil-A when it comes to my nuggets. I trust Green Bay when it comes to quarterbacks. I trust Texas when it comes to running backs. I trust Iowa when it comes to tight ends. Iowa tight end, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Iowa's offense sucks. I bet they got a good tight end, though. Probably so. 13 tight ends drafted since 2000. Yeah, probably so. I trust Ohio State wide receivers. Why wouldn't you? They got like 4 wide receiver ones in the league right now. Why would you? You know what I mean? Like I think certain brands have earned our trust. Running back at Texas, I think they've earned our trust. So I'll go with it. I'll trust that it's going to be. I thought the running game would drop off after Bijan and Rojo left. I remember predicting that. Nope, not really. They did have a red zone Bijan Rojo hangover, different discussion, but the running game was still pretty dynamic and explosive without Rojo and Bijan. So I think, like I said, I think that between the coach, between the culture, between the talent, Texas will be okay. Can they sustain another injury in the running back room? No. This is it. Like this is it. The talented depth. It really doesn't go beyond your top 2 guys. You can't deplete it anymore. Then you got to get really crazy and exotic and move somebody from linebacker to running back or something crazy like that. But right now, I think they're okay. It just happened a lot earlier than we thought. So that's my glass half full. Now let's get to the panic plan. What Texas is going to do. I think ultimately, listen, you guys know I love 2-back sets. I've been advocating for more pony package forever. Even wanted to play a genuine clip in the stadium from the My Pony song whenever they broke out the pony package. Thought it would have been great. And it is your most explosive, your most efficient, and your most effective personnel grouping from 2023. But the truth is, it doesn't make a lot of sense when you don't have depth at running back. It's too risky to have if you only got 2 running backs you trust and have both of them on the field at the same time. I don't know if it's worth it. Now, yes, occasionally you can throw it out there, but I want it to become more of a staple, maybe something you break out, 15% of the time because of how effective it is. But you can't afford to do that. So they're going to dial back the pony package. That just goes without saying. It's unfortunate, and that's some of your diversity and variety on your offense. And also, like I said, that's your most explosive and most effective personnel grouping that really maximizes one of the deepest areas on your team. So that's not gonna happen. You're gonna have more single back sets. It's just more 11, more 12 personnel. I would even, if I'm sorry, break out that 10 personnel package, 1 back, 0 tight ends, the red package, as he called it in Alabama, where you have 4 wide receivers on the field. You just need more variety because you're gonna lose some variety. Because you're going to lose that pony package. I hope the Trey Wisner compliments have been genuine because if they are, that's really good because they're going to need him now. And he's got to step up and take the role that Jaden Blue was going to occupy as a back that complemented a change of pace for Cedric Baxter. Now that Jaden Blue, is going to become your lead back, your workhorse back. Now you need Trey Wisner to complement him in other ways. And so that is, if he's as good as they have been, claiming, then also I think they'll be okay at the running back spot. Also, I'll throw out there Jerry Gibson. We talked about this, Christian Clark. How quickly can you get them acclimated, and how quickly can you get them in the rotation, or one of them in the rotation? Maybe not both, one. And it really will depend on running back just running the football as a ball carrier, I think that's something that translates pretty easily for young running backs. But Patrick, those are not the things that are going to keep them off the field or get them on the field. It really is not. You get hand off the football to those guys with that offensive line, I guarantee you they'd all look pretty damn good. But as a running back, there's other things.
Yeah.
And pass protection is going to be one of them.
Yep.
One of the main things. If they can't pass protect, especially with Quinn out there, that'll keep a young buck off the field, and that's a lot on a young guy's plate. It's very dear. I guarantee you, in pass protect, they probably didn't pass protect at all in high school because they were getting the ball too damn much. Why would you have a good player like that pass protecting from some jabroni quarterback in high school? No, he's getting the football. Now, pass protection becomes top priority.
Yeah, pass protection's huge, and ball security's huge.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
probably better. It's probably more important than actually pass protection. Yeah,
because
that's top priority.
Especially if you're talking about into games, and you're not necessarily blowing people out, but you're up 14 with 6 minutes to go, 5 minutes to go. You want to hand the ball off, and maybe you've already handed the ball off to Jaden Blue 25 times, 20 times, and you're like, all right, let's give him a little bit of a rest. We're still early enough in the season. We got a 2 touchdown lead. Just run the ball out. And they cough the ball up on your side of the field. Now we got to put our starters out there on defense. We got to be ready to go. And if they score, now every starter's got to be back out there on offense. And we got to really be, making sure that we've got this now and wind it down. And then all of a sudden it becomes a tight one because of, a simple mistake. And those young guys, a lot of times, you see a guy try and pick up 2 extra yards, try and make the big play, try and break one outside and swing that ball further out instead of keeping it up against their body, and that one comes out, or you're not paying attention, not listening to your teammates, and don't hear when someone's running up behind you, ready to punch the ball out. Those are the problems that you could have. That's always, something that every coach is going to watch. It would not surprise me if that is something worked on a lot in these next coming weeks to make sure that these guys have ball security. I mean, look at false starts, making sure on play action, you come on the right side of Quinn Ewers, just knowing the playbook, those types of things, those mental mistakes where it's not even that you're really messing up the play, but boy, that'll piss the coach off.
Yeah, it will.
Just stuff like that where you lined up, you line up wrong, or Quinn has to turn around and tell you what to do and take him out of where he needs to be in the game because you're lined up slightly wrong, or you get an illegal motion because you move when we got a wide receiver moving and you're still moving at that point. Those types of little mental errors, you can't have any of those. And, you're going to be in playing time where you're probably not going to be in the major moments, but you can skew how the game is called or for the rest of the game if you make a mental mistake in that fourth quarter.
I totally agree. And I love what you said about the ball security. I'll give you a stat about that in just a second, but I also think about what you just brought up about guys being assignment sound. There's a lot of movement in Sark's offense.
Yeah.
A lot of movement. And we love that, right? The pre-snap motion shifts I talk about all the time being a conceptual signature. There's also a lot of opportunity for guys to have brain farts and for a young guy to not know where he's supposed to line up or to miss the quarterback's cue to shift him or to move him around the formation. And that's also another thing. I didn't think about it. That could keep a young guy off the field. So I say it ain't going to be running the football that's going to keep one of these young guys off the field. If you just hand the football, I guarantee you they look spectacular behind that old line. It's going to be number one. I think Patrick hit the nail on the head. Ball security is number one in determining which one of these guys separates and what their developmental rate is. And I think number two is going to be pass protection. It's going to be pass. And honestly, you could argue number 2 would be pre-snap, being assignment sound, I should say, but especially in the pre-snap movement, because there's so much of the pre-snap movements and so much shifting in Sark's offense. So they got to be assignment sound in that area. So those 3 things will keep them off the field. Those 3 areas will keep them off the field if they can't figure out a way, honestly, to master at least 2 of the 3. I don't think the coach will, let's say if you have great ball security and you can pass protect really well, I think Sarko, I believe, and I could be wrong about this, but I believe considering now the loss of Cedric Baxter and the lack of depth you have at running back, I think he would be a little bit more patient with a young player who doesn't necessarily know all the time where to line up and doesn't know
Yeah.
the entire playbook. And he would probably, break it all down and put him in there on certain plays where things are simplified for him. Where
Yeah.
it's like, oh no, he's got one, and by the way, you'd probably give him a reminder, right? Because Quinn's got the headset now, be like, hey, remind him, like, hey man, you're gonna shift. You're shifting to the left. You're gonna start on the top, then you shift to the left. Okay, gotcha. What I mean? That you probably would just gradually bring him along. So he'd
Yeah.
probably be more patient there. But there's some things are, I mean, that's a no, it's a non-starter. If you can't hold on to the football and you don't have ball security and you can't pass protect, then you're gonna put Quinn in danger. And that's exactly, that's something that's non-negotiable. Can't compromise that. You probably could compromise on the pre-snap issues and the knowing the knowledge of the entire playbook. That's just something that may take some time.
Yeah, and I
But
mean, and we talk about pass protection. Not being great at it even isn't the worst thing. It's not knowing the right, not being able to read the defense, and just
yes,
missing the blitz. Because if you get in there and a guy blows through you, sometimes, look, we're going to put more weight on you. You're a young guy. That was a
yep,
senior coming at you. I get it. You're going to get blown up sometimes. You shouldn't be. Didn't expect you to make that play.
yep.
But if you are looking to your right and Quinn Ewers gets sacked behind you, that's
Ooh,
a problem.
yeah.
That's
Clean hit on the quarterback is a problem.
yes. The fact that
Yeah,
you didn't even go in there and give him a chance to run and give him a chance to get out of the way, those are
yep.
the ones that are really going to get you in trouble because you weren't paying attention to something.
I agree with you on that too. Yeah, it's so crazy how we it's like I said, those young guys in their development, it's got nothing to do with them being ball carriers or dynamic runs of the football. As Patrick mentioned, like I said, even their technique, it doesn't have to be perfect in situations, but being assignment sound, at least
Yeah.
knowing what to do and knowing where to be, that's going to earn the trust of the coaches. Everything else will come. Here's the stat though about ball security and why I think you're right, Patrick. That's going to be top priority. How about this? 4 Longhorns had multiple fumbles last year. Even taking out Quinn Ewers, who had multiple fumbles too. Texas's fumble rate more than triple the SEC average. How about that? Of the 16 fumbles, 9 were recovered by opponents, which ranked in the back third of college offenses. So the fumbles were a bit of an issue. I mean, that's one of the reasons
Yeah.
that you lost the Sugar Bowl. You had 2 fumbles. Our running backs. Getting back to it. So ball security will be top priority for those backs. All right. There you go. We'll come back and I'll get into strategy. All right. How the strategy needs to change for Texas without CJ Baxter. And I think it seems like it's simple, but I think there is one direction, or it'll be a multi-pronged, I think, solution to try to figure out and remedy the issue with the running game and the loss of CJ Baxter. But I do think there's one I do think there's one aspect of the offense where Sark could lean on this specific aspect of the offense or this strategy. And I think it could pay huge dividends. So we'll talk about that when we come back. And we'll get into some more Texas football conversation when we go behind the burnt orange curtain right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get to some Texas football conversation. Well, we just were talking Texas football. Get back to Texas football conversation. So, and this actually relates to CJ Baxter. I was doing some research about this even prior to the CJ Baxter news coming out, and looking at different trends in the SEC and comparing those with different staples, concepts that Sark likes to use and that he utilizes that are conceptual but kind of signatures within his offense, and seeing how Sark's offense and his brand of football is going to translate into the SEC. And more, I'm starting to think that Sark, it's going to be one or the other, right? It's going to be either Sark's going to be adapting to the SEC ecosystem, or the SEC is going to have to adapt to Sark. And I think we all want it to be the latter. And I believe that if Sark studies the trends of the SEC, which I'm sure he is, he's got somebody doing it for him, and he knows the SEC really well because he coached in the SEC. But in terms of obviously recently, because he's been in the Big 12, or at least he was for 3 years, there are certain conceptual signatures. There are certain plays that are on a downward trend in the SEC, right? That the things are starting, trends are starting to decrease. Certain concepts are not as popular as they used to be, and I almost feel like Sark should look at the trends of the least popular concepts in the SEC and the ones that align with his philosophy and ideology, and should become an extremist about those. And here's an example. An example is early down pass rate, right? First of all, you need to up your early down pass rate now with the CJ Baxter news anyway. Right, CJ Baxter no longer available. He was going to be your linchpin running back, your workhorse running back, your main course running back, and now you don't have him, so you're not as formidable on early downs with the run game. And Jaden Blue, I'm not taking anything away from him. He could still be great in the interior runs and the early down runs, but if you had two of those guys, you'd be more effective. So my point is, you'll be less effective even because you just got one instead of two. And with that, take some of those carries and touches that you had planned and scripted for CJ Baxter, and just put them in the hands or give them to Quinn Ewers, right? Quinn Ewers is a 3-year starting quarterback in that same system. It's his team, it's his offense. And, we're not talking about deep vertical shots downfield. We're talking about high percentage passes. We're talking about screens and RPOs in the quick game, hitches and quick out routes and quick slants and tags on the RPOs and your smoke routes and your bubble screens and your tunnel screens. We're talking about easy throws that are muscle memory. Just for him, it's their second nature, especially in this offense. They're long handoffs is what they are. They're just an extension of the running game, if you will. And you can do that and let that supplement for some of the, the loss, rushing attempts you're going to have for CJ Baxter. They can just be, like I said, long handoffs for Quinn Ewers in the passing game. So if I'm Sark, I'm thinking about upping my early down pass rate. Number one, that's one of my solutions to try to, solve whatever problems are going to be presented to you or going to arise because of the loss of CJ Baxter. One of them is, what do I do with those extra touches now that CJ Baxter? I can't give them all to Jaden Blue. I can't, just say, all right, all those are going to go to Trey Wisner. I don't know if that's the most effective way to use those touches. Well, Quinn is going to be effective in the passing game. All right. He's part of what's going to be the identity of that offense. So now lean on your strength, which is your deep wide receiving core, your third-year starting quarterback in the same system, 4 out of your 5 starters returning on the offensive line. That's a nice nucleus for a passing game. Maybe the chemistry will be off a little bit early on between Quinn and some of the receivers because they're brand new. We don't know. But I think that's a problem you can overcome. And honestly, we don't even know if that's going to be a problem. We just saw a little bit of sneak peek of that in the spring game. So in addition to this being a solution to help you deal with the loss of CJ Baxter, I think it also will help you transition better into the SEC. Because like I said, in the SEC, from the research I've done from according to StatCat, the SEC early down, early down pass rate. So we're talking about first half, first quarter. We're talking about early game, early down pass rate in the last 2 years is 45%. So they've run the ball 55% of the time on early downs, early in the game. And when Sark's getting creative, when he's in his bag as an innovator, he usually leans toward the pass. You know this because you go watch big games, and the opening script for him, which we learn now is 40 plays. That's a long opening script. They're usually higher rates of pass attempts or higher pass rates than rush rates in that opening script earlier in the game. Now, throughout the game, I think it balances out. But if you're looking at the opening script, I looked at the first half. All right, early downs in the first half of these big games, Bama, Oklahoma, K-State, Oklahoma State, Washington. You have 56% pass rate, 58%, 56% versus Alabama, 58% versus Oklahoma, 58% versus K-State, 62% versus Oklahoma State, early down, early game pass rates for Texas. And against Washington, it was a little lower. It's like 53%. That's because I think you were running the ball really effective. Remember, they had the pony package in the second drive of the game where they scored their first touchdown. And I think they realized we were running the ball really, really effectively. So let's run the football more. And so that's why I think that was a little bit lower. But I do think, Sark in big games, early down, early game pass rates high in his opening script. I think this season with the CJ Baxter news and with the transition going into the SEC, that his early down pass rate should be closer to 60%. It should be hovering around 57, 58%, maybe 55% on average, but maybe when you're playing big games, you're at 60%. If you go look at and my man CJ Baxter, it's not CJ Baxter, CJ Vogel over at On Texas Football, he broke this down when he was looking at the opening drives for Texas this past season, and he looked at the pass rate on the opening drives for Texas, and he said the pass rate was 76% on the opening drives. What does that tell you? Opening drive, that's Sark in his bag. He's been practicing them plays all week long, the opening drive, right? And opening script. That's also him sitting at home, designing plays, putting together his game plan. He's the head coach, he's the head coach and the play caller. So that's all him. And like I said, when he is most comfortable, most inspired, and most motivated as a play caller and a play designer, he leans on the pass. I think he knows he needs to run game to help balance him out and balance his offense out. But I believe that's why he opens up with the pass game, closes with the run. That is also a strategy. That's why he's got the big humans. The big humans are not for the beginning of the game. The big humans are for when you're worn out and tired from chasing his speed demons all over the field, right? For 3 quarters. And when you're chasing the motions and all the shifts, and you're dealing with the vertical threat of the passing game downfield, once you've done that and they've hit you with body blows in the run game for 3 quarters, the 4th quarter is for the big humans to lean on you and impose their will, because by then you're just worn out and you don't have the depth and you just don't have the conditioning to be able to withstand that. That's what the big humans are for. That's why his strategy is open with the run, open with the passing game, close with the run, like he did in the Alabama game. So it didn't work out last year because teams would get back into the game with you, and then Texas got to just find a way to hold on for dear life and win the game. But ultimately, I think that's his strategy. And that strategy can still work because now you can open up the game with the pass, but you can use the pass to set up the run, which I think you're going to have to do more now without CJ Baxter. So it leans into that theory as well. Use the pass, which is your strength. Your strength is going to determine your identity, and lean into the pass. The pass will open up the run. Once they respect your passing game, they will back their safeties up. They'll try to win the numbers advantage in the passing game, give you a light box, and invite you to run the football. You may get that early anyway. Now that the loss of CJ Baxter is out there, you may get defensive coordinators that say to themselves, listen, I'm not going to defend ghosts, right? If you don't have a true number one workhorse running back, why would the hell would I load the box to try to stop him? I'm not loading the box to try to stop your second string running back. I'm not calling Jaden Blue that. I'm just telling you, just for the sake of the hypothetical, as the defensive coordinator. So the defensive coordinator might decide, nah, I'm already dropping guys back. Prove to me you can run the football before I devote numbers to stop it. I know what Quinn Ewers can do. I know what that wide receiving core can do. I know that O-line can do in terms of pass protection. I don't really know what your running game can do now that you lost C.J. Baxter. So show me. Missouri, show me. So you might get that anyway, which would be good. Because then you can start off with light boxes and then force teams to have to come down and respect the run.
Yeah. And I'll say this.
I would put it in Quinn's hands. I would put it in Quinn's hands.
I do think Michigan, though, will probably blitz even more now. I would say Michigan, I think, will bring even more pressure and say, and just like we were talking about with the backs, and can you pick up the blitzes? All right. We know you. We don't think that you're going to be able to run on us. So even if we blitz, we're not really worried about that. So we're going to use our strengths and just come after Quinn early and often. And are your backs going to be able to get back there? Are you going to go empty set and we send somebody else and he's just got to get the ball off? It would not surprise me knowing Wink Martindale and what that Michigan team can do. That, in the bigs, they may show those disguises where either it's we look like we're going to drop back, or we're going to come at you, but it's going to be one or the other.
You're right. I didn't even think about it. I haven't even gotten that far yet, but you hit the nail on the head. They're definitely going to blitz the hell out of whoever is that running back. They will be tested. So even more so to the point, when you put those youngsters in there today, Jared Gibson and Christian Clark, I don't know how often they blitz in practice or how much they blitz. It should be a blitz happy practice now going forward when they are in there, when those youngsters are in there, to see how well they pick up the blitz. And so you have plenty of film to help, instruct and coach them on, and also stripping the football for the youngsters.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they do that in practice anyway, but I would even tell the defense, if I was Sark, I say, listen, guys, when those youngsters are in there, I don't really care about tackling them. We'll just kind of thud up. I need y'all stripping the football. I need to know if they can hold on to the football. So I go after it. I need every D lineman, linebackers, DBs, go after the football today with those youngsters.
Yeah.
Because I need to be able to get in their rear end, right, about holding on to the football and ball security, like you mentioned, Patrick. That's going to be key in terms of them getting on the field. So we'll see in practice. They will be. You better test that in practice, because how else they're going to earn trust if you don't know if they can pick up the blitz and you don't know if they can hold on to the ball. That's it. All right, good stuff there. We'll come back. We got off the record, couple of stories from off the record, Olympic related stories. We'll examine these when we come back on the other side, right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get into a little off the record conversation here. So I was there's some weird stories coming out of the Olympics these days. Did you hear about the young lady, Canadian pole vaulter Alicia Newman? Is her name? She's also an influencer. But as she won her first ever Olympic medal, do you know how she decided to celebrate? This is such a 21st century story.
I do not know.
She twerked.
I
Alicia
see.
Newman
I see.
twerked at the Olympics in Paris after she jumped 4.85 meters. She decided, you know what? This is how I'm celebrating. I'm gonna do a little twerk for y'all. So there you go. Pole vaulter doing a little twerking. Canadian twerking too. There you go. That's it. That's like I said, that is I would never thought I'd see the day where Canadian, I mean, just Olympic athletes are twerking to celebrate their medal. She twerked.
Yeah,
It's amazing.
I mean,
It's fantastic.
it's
awesome.
is that saying that twerking is that the
Twerking, it's international now. It's mainstream.
no? But I'm just saying, it's a thing now that like I don't know if I think there's people who don't take it as sexual as it is. They're just like, oh, it's just dancing.
No, yeah. Some people, you're right. That's why I say it's mainstream now. It's not.
Yeah.
That's why like it's gone to the point now where, and I hate to say it, you're gonna have kids doing it, like little kids, because like you said, it's not what it used to be. It used to be like something that started in strip clubs twerking. Now it's like, now you do the Olympic stage, mainstream. She's just doing a little twerk, and everybody was like, okay, you just twerk like that. It's like, yeah, no big deal. Little twerk. So, hey man, good for her. Twerking, like I say, has gone mainstream. And just in case you didn't know, now you know. All right. Speaking of Olympic coverage, as I saw this, they give out a lot of condoms at the Olympics.
Yeah.
They had like designs on these condoms. They had like these these cartoon characters they would put on them. Like basically, and they would say like on the field of love, play fair, and it'd be like this. I don't know if you've seen it, these weird little quirky characters they put on all the condoms. I don't know why. It's just weird like that. I don't know. They didn't say a reason for it. But they do every Olympics. They try to engage in responsible sexual behavior. All right. So and they promote it. They promote being responsible. So they give these guys, and gals, they give them a lot of condoms. I believe they supplied them with 300,000 condoms for the summer games in the village. Which I think they've done the math. They said track and field athletes from Team USA will receive 2,520 condoms, or 21 condoms per athlete, divided across the 19 days of official competition. I guess you got a little bit more than one condom to use per day. So here's my thing. First of all, I always say there's certain things in life you shouldn't skimp on. Like don't go get the sushi from the gas station.
Yeah.
Like, don't skimp on toilet paper. Don't skimp on surgery. Lawyers, get a good lawyer. It's worth it. There's certain things in life you just don't want to skimp on. And I think condoms is one of them. Like I'm not trying to I don't want a free condom. I want the top of the line. I get the top name brand condom. These are no name brand condoms. I don't necessarily trust whoever it was giving the responsibility to make these condoms, because they don't have like any name on them. I want my condoms made by the people that make condoms, right? I want to trust Trojan with that, whoever it is.
Yeah.
I don't want these no name Olympic condoms when I'm getting busy in the Olympic Village. I don't trust these. Nope. I would go buy my own condoms if I was them.
Well, do they sell? Like, you bring them in. I'd
bring my own condoms to the village. Yes, no doubt. No, I'd bring my own condoms. I'm not trusting the Olympic committee, whoever was trying to get a deal on these damn condoms, these free condoms. No, I don't want your free condoms. I'm sorry. I know they do that too. Unless it's name brand free condoms you're giving away, don't give me the no name brand free condoms. I do not want those. Nope. That's cheap. Being cheap with something that could have lifetime ramifications. You don't want to do that. It ain't worth it. It's worth it just spend the $10 on your own condoms and know, like, all right, it's a trusted source rather than the no. There's a Seinfeld episode about this. Remember the Seinfeld episode about?
Yeah. By the way, don't use them. They're defective.
Yeah, exactly. So, where do you get these guys from? I don't know. And he came from like North Korea. So I have no idea. I know. No. I would not trust them, dude. And they do this every Olympics. They bring them like 300,000 guns. Nope, don't trust it. I would bring my own. Just throwing it out there. All right. There's a lot of banging going on. They getting busy. At least they're being responsible with it. I always say this is my theory. The best sex in the world is had at the Olympics, like in the world, period. That there's no better sex in the world than the sex that's being had at the Olympics. They're world class athletes in their prime, who are like the most elite athletes in they're all physical specimens. That there's no way that they're not all having like amazing sex in the village. That's what I think. That's what my theory. It's gotta be.
I mean, but the problem is the beds are bad. So the beds are bad, but they're still doing it. And it feels like
It makes it even
it's
better. They're doing the exotic places there.
just uncomfortable, sweaty.
Yep.
Like it feels like the worst setting for the best people at it. It just
I think that's what maybe they're trying to deter them
Yeah.
from getting busy so much, whatever it is. But I mean, because you can say you're having good sex, and I'm sure everybody's having good sex. I hope you're having good sex. That's great. Be responsible with it. But it's still something you got to be like in decent shape to do. Like, so it would stand, it would stand to, in my opinion, all right, it would stand up to the fact that those people who are in really amazing shape, that they probably can take it to another level. that us normal people just can't do. The Gen Pop just can't. We ain't got the flexibility. We ain't got the conditioning. We don't have the muscles in places. They have muscles. We just don't. So that's my theory. The best sex in the world happens every 4 years at the Olympics. Period. I guess when they do the Winter Olympics fall into that? I don't know.
I don't
think
know.
it's a summer.
Because
there's
too many clothes. You're playing the guessing game.
That's true. The Summer Olympics, everybody's wearing like skimpy clothes and like really tight stuff. And you're right. Yeah. You're right. Summer Olympics is just sexier overall, period.
Yeah.
There's something sexy going on in the Summer Olympics. That ain't happening in the Winter Olympics. But there you go. That's my random theory. That's why they're giving out 300,000 condoms, I guess. All right, we come back. Last hour of the show. We're already getting off the rails. We'll come back. We'll get into NFL news, notes, and nuggets. I'm starting to look at the divisions for the Cowboys and the Texans. I'll tell you what I found there. Also, what's going on with the Pittsburgh Steelers? This summer is there's a lot of storylines out there about the Steelers that are very un-Steeler-like. We'll examine those because the Steelers are going to play the Texans coming up tomorrow. So we'll talk a little bit about that, their quarterback controversy or competition happening. We'll hear from Mike Tomlin as well. We'll get into all of that and more on the other side with Rod's Rant of the Day. We're jam-packed on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Low and Rod Davis coming back on the horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a new theme Thursday. That's when Patrick, my co-host, the Idealionaire, comes up with a brand new creative theme, usually based on something relevant. Could be an anniversary, could be a celebrity birthday, something pop culturally relevant. Well, today it is to celebrate an Olympic competition, the breakdancing competition. So, and out of the breakdancing competition in the Olympics starting up tomorrow, this weekend, he's actually playing songs that maybe we'll hear for the breakdancing competition, but certainly songs that are synonymous with breakdancing in our culture. So I think all of them have a, I don't know, it seems like a lot of them have a kind of a shelf life too. Like you haven't played anything outside of the 80s,
I
right?
don't think
Early
so. I think
80s.
these are
Yeah.
kind of when breakdancing was
Yeah.
really big.
Yeah. That stands to reason. Now you got a lot of you had a break dancing, a lot of jams back then. It's like when disco was big, you had a lot of disco songs.
Yeah.
Well, now nobody's making disco music. So who's making breakdancing music now? Because people aren't breakdancing as much. That is the mystery.
So
That
I mean,
will
I'm
be.
sure it exists, but yeah, I don't know if but they're not. No one knows them anymore. So now I'd just be playing random tracks, and it'll be
I know. Are they gonna play random tracks? I can't wait to see how the break dancing competition goes down at the Olympics. It's gonna be fascinating. Tomorrow, we will keep you abreast of it as well, because I think while the show is on tomorrow, we're gonna get at least the end of the show. We'll get some of the break dancing competition, so we'll let you know and give you our thoughts on that. Also, we have the topic for the big fat poll of the day that is posted up at the Horned X account. Go check it out at the Horn ATX. Patrick's got that one for you. Patrick, what's the topic for the big old fat poll of the day?
big fat poll today. How many 300-yard rushers will Texas have this season? Sark has had 300-yard rushers twice so far in his 3 years at Texas. That is the number 3 way too many times in a row. But right now, 3 has the lead with 42% of the vote, 2 with 33% of the vote, 1 with 14% of the vote, and 4 with about 9% of the vote.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, there's evidence either way, right? The last year you had a freshman step up and help you with that, and that was CJ Baxter. And in 2021, I think it was Keelan Robinson who came over with Sark, though, but he had already earned the trust of Sark and had been in that system a little bit. I'm going to say 2. 2 is where I voted, but I see the majority of you guys voting. You say 3. 43% of you say they got 3 guys that are rushed for 3. That would be really good news. If that's the case, that means one of those young backs that they proved that ball security was not an issue with them, that they could be proficient in pass protection, and that their assignment sound enough to get on the field and earn the trust of the coaches. And I think Patrick and I have identified those are the 3 key areas. Whoever has the most or the biggest leaps of improvement and the most improvement in those areas, that's probably who's gonna, of those young guys, Jared Gibson and Christian Clark, that's probably who's gonna separate. And I don't right now, we have no idea who that's going to be. And I'll try my best. I'm sure there'll be a lot of reports coming out. I'll try my best to get more information about those specific areas and how or at least pay attention to reports in those specific areas about how the 2 backs are doing. Okay, there you go. We talked a lot about Texas football. We'll get back to that conversation, of course. But I want to get into some NFL news notes and nuggets here. I've been looking at the division, so expanding my research beyond just the Texans and the Cowboys, but into their divisional opponents, and I found some really interesting nuggets about some of their opponents doing research. I'll share those with you. Also, we'll get into a couple of the preseason matchups. Tomorrow, the Texans will be facing off against the Steelers. Steelers have been involved in a lot of kind of salacious news lately, very unsteeler-like. We'll discuss that, how the Steelers are having a very unsteeler-like offseason so far and what that means. But we'll also get into that quarterback competition, the Brandon Ayuk plot twist. And it seems like a lot of the buzz has died down. It seems like we were building to kind of a point of critical mass, if you will, with the Brandon Ayuk deal, and now kind of crickets. Things have slowed down, so something's happening. I don't know what, and it's weird. A lot of this, the Brandon Ayuk stuff doesn't make sense. I think he and the 49ers are playing chicken here, and they're waiting for the other to blink. And I'm not sure, which one of them is winning this this game of chicken going on between Brandon Ayuk and the 49ers. I'm not sure. I think the 49ers are going to end up losing out just because if they don't get a wide receiver of his talent, of his caliber, at least somewhat you know, I see somewhat proven as a wide receiver one. They don't get that in exchange. I think they're the ones who ultimately lose out. He's gonna get his money. I think that's what he wants the money. He's like, man, I'm trying to get paid. And ultimately, if he gets paid, then he wins. That's what he wanted. That's his number one priority. I don't think he cares as much about playing with a certain quarterback in a system or with a team. I don't think that matters. He just wants to be paid what he believes he's worth. And the 49ers are not going to pay him that. I think the 49ers they're not going to be the same team. The 49ers are not going to be as formidable, in my opinion, without Brandon Ayuk, unless they get somebody in return, a veteran in return at wide receiver who can do some of the things that he can do against man-to-man.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So I don't know, Patrick. I'm not sure.
I don't
right
know.
Now.
And the price of what he's being asked seems to change from team to team and day to day, too, of where you sit.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen reports that they want 2 firsts for him. And if you want 2 firsts and $30 million contract, that's a lot.
That's a lot too. Oh,
that is a lot.
That means you're not being realistic. Then, do you really want to trade him? Then is the question.
No, but this is the reality. Is I don't think they want to trade him. I don't think he wants to go anywhere. I think he wants $30 million to play for the 49ers.
Yeah,
I think that's what he wants.
Yeah,
because he doesn't want to go. He doesn't. I don't think. I mean, trust me. I wouldn't want to.
Leave San Fran and go live in Pittsburgh.
Well, no, but 3 weeks before the season, be like, hey, by the way, learn an entire new playbook. Go in there, build a connection with this new quarterback, and build and do all those things. Just fast track it now, when you have comfort with a system and a quarterback and everything, and you've been competing for Super Bowls, and you've been doing that, and then everything changes. I think there's part of it where you go, well, I want the money, but man, it's like when you get in those contract negotiations, they go, for $6 million. The difference is $6 million. So the difference of 120 and 112 or say 120, 114.
Mm-hmm. Is it worth it?
Is it worth to go in there and do all this and then have the unknown of I don't know what'll happen? I don't know. So I don't know. Ask for another 20. They go, we're not paying you another 20. Well, I guess we can't do it. You didn't want me.
Good deal. That's what I'm worth. No, I think, and that's why I think it's happening on both. I think the 49ers, they don't want to trade him, and that's why they're asking for a ridiculous amount and make us an offer we can't refuse.
Yeah.
But then they don't want to pay him. And it's like, well, if you want him to stay, you got to pay him. And I'm with you. I don't think he wants to leave either. He wants his cake and eat it too. He wants the 49ers to pay him
and that's
the money and also be able to stay with the 49ers.
And that when you see that price tag too, I think that is the same concept of if he goes to the Browns, we want Amari Cooper in a first. Or if he goes and you don't want to give us another wide receiver, we want a first to go trade for another wide receiver. So we're going to take one of those first and give it to another team for a wide receiver, and then we'll keep a first because we gave up this wide receiver that was really.
But the market value, I would say, is usually a first. Because remember, Tyreek Hill probably went for the most, right? I got to go back and check exactly what the draft cap.
Well,
he's
the best.
He's the best, and it was not 2 firsts, all right? It was a first, and I believe it was like a first, a second, a third. I'll go back and get it right now, but that's kind of where you start. So they would be asking for like an unprecedented amount if they're asking for that much. It's a lot. That's a lot, and the $30 million I got to pay him on top of that. Whew, yeah, I'm not sure. Yes, I don't think either side is really serious about this, but they may be forced to, obviously cross the Rubicon, if you will, the point of no return in this stuff. So I don't know how it's going to work out, because even now Shano has opened the door that he could stay, but y'all not going to pay him. So he basically would admit to losing this negotiation if he stays with the 49ers. And I don't think they wouldn't do that either.
No, let's put it this way too. So Tyreek was a first, a second, 2 fourths, and a 6th.
Okay, first, a second, 2 fourths.
And then he got basically a $30 million a year deal. But the problem was only $72 million guaranteed.
So a 1, 2, 2 fours, and a 6. And honestly, I guess if you probably add up the value of those, the two 4s and a 6, you probably come pretty close to a first. If you add up, because they have their own charts where they.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, I see what you're saying. But I'm saying they do have charts where they every pick has a slotted value. And then they will add up those values and say, all right, basically your 2 fourths and a 6th and a second, that essentially gives me the equivalent value of a first.
Yeah.
And then you have the first. And so maybe you can package up the, whatever you get mid-round picks and late-round picks to try to trade for wide receiver. But I'm with you. I 2 firsts. Wow. Wrapping my brain around that, it just seems like a lot.
It
It seems
does.
like a lot for anybody.
It seems like a lot.
Unless it's a quarterback.
It seems a
quarterback
lot for
I'd
a
do
guy
it.
that we're saying is possibly a top 5 wide receiver, but you don't know if it's the system or the player. And that's a lot to give up for a guy that you can almost guarantee is not a top 4 wide receiver.
I wouldn't have him as a top 4
Well,
wide
but
receiver.
because the concept would be, well, when we put him in, what we're going to do with him will make him a top 4.
Yeah, that's what they
That's
would say.
that the only way you're giving up that is you have to believe that, right?
You have to. You got to believe that he projects to be that guy. Yep,
Yeah.
in your system. But if you're Pittsburgh, you already know who your quarterback's going to be. Yeah.
And by the way, Arthur Smith's your OC.
Who loves to use elite players as decoys. That's his claim to fame. It's like, nah, you're gonna focus on Bijan. Look out. It's like, okay. No, it's fascinating. I don't know how it's gonna. At this point, I really have no idea how it's gonna end up. Because like I said, it's been so many twists and turns in the Brandon Ayuk story, but we'll get to that. All right, let's hit the horn headlines, and then we'll come back and I'll give you my thoughts about some of the division foes. I'll give you some nuggets about the division foes for the Texans and for the Cowboys. And then at one point, we'll get into the the very un-Steeler-like offseason that we've been witnessing for the Steelers and talk about their quarterback competition and talk about the Brandon Ayuk situation because it looked like they may be the front runner. But even that does not align with the Steelers that we have come to know and love. So we'll get into that too. But first, let's get updated, educated, and informed on all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn Headlines.
All right, the Horn Headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the MLB, the Astros took the final regular season matchup with the Rangers 6-4 to win the series and keep the silver boot in Houston. Yusei Kikuchi picked up his first win with the Astros after pitching 5 1/3 innings, allowing 2 runs and striking out 8. The Astros were able to take a 5-0 lead with RBIs from 6 different players in the game before the Rangers made a rally in the 6th to cut the lead to 2. However, they could never fully close the gap. Houston Zach DeZinzo, who was called up to the majors earlier this week, got his first hit of the season while coming around to score twice in the game. The Rangers now await to take on the Yankees in New York on Friday, while the Astros travel to Boston to take on the Red Sox starting Friday as well. NFL preseason action tonight. The Panthers will take on the Patriots with Drake May making his debut while Bryce Young will not play in the matchup. And the Lions will face the Giants after both teams are fined $200,000 for multiple fights breaking out at joint practices earlier this week. Team USA basketball will take on Serbia at 2 p.m. today for a spot in the gold medal game with the winner of France versus Germany. This will be the team's third matchup with Serbia, beating them by 26 points both times. Once in their Abu Dhabi exhibition and once in the group phase. And looking over at the medal count on Thursday for the Olympics, USA still holding on to that 1 gold medal lead over China, 27 gold medals for the U.S., 35 silver, 33 bronze, and 95 total medals, taking a commanding lead there over China's 67. And that is your Horn Headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn Headlines. Appreciate those as always. All right, let's get to some of the division foes. A couple of nuggets I've been able to find just researching the NFC East and the AFC South. Let's start with the NFC East. I think it's going to come down to the Eagles and the Cowboys. I've said that. I was thinking about this after Patrick brought up the question, the topic for the Big Fat Poll today earlier this week about where the Cowboys will finish in the division. And I thought to myself, yeah, it'll be a two-team race, but if there could be a wild card that could really upset things, it will be Washington. They got some weapons on offense. And I think the number one factor in between those 3 teams, though, that really could just throw this entire division into chaos, the familiarity and the incestuous kind of relationships that exist between the Cowboys, the Eagles, and Washington. Right, the Commanders. You have Dan Quinn there, who's now the head coach, and Dan Quinn has a very intimate knowledge of the Cowboys roster from his time there. Knows coaches really well, knows the systems really well, knows the players really well. He took a lot of players from that Cowboys roster literally to become players on his defense for Washington. And on top of that, they know him really well. I mean, the Cowboys know Dan Quinn's system. It is a very unique system, and they know all of the weaknesses. They know all of the trap doors and the loopholes. They know it, and they know Dan Quinn as a play caller and how he's going to approach things. And so there's familiarity on both sides of that. And then, by the way, both the Cowboys and Dan Quinn know Kellen Moore really well, who's now the offensive coordinator for the Eagles. And Kellen Moore's not that far removed from being that long ago from being the offensive play caller for the Cowboys. And so he still has some knowledge of Mike McCarthy that personnel the Cowboys have, and also some familiarity with the Dan Quinn system and there at Washington and what he's going to be running. So that is something you really can't quantify. Can't really account for that, but that's going to make it really interesting. That's why you can throw, I think, Washington there as a wild card team, but also Jaden Daniels as just a wild card player, period. I was doing some research, like I said, about the division, and I came across this little stat about Jaden Daniels, who's going to be the new quarterback at Washington. He's one of the most scramble-happy quarterbacks in college football. He has been for the last 10 years, or in the last 10 years, I should say. If you look at most scrambles in a Power 5 season dating back to 2014, Drake May actually has the season with the most in that time span. 76 scrambles in 2022 for him. So Drake May likes to scramble a little bit. He's gonna need to with New England. But Jaden Daniels, second and third. 2022, he had 70 scrambles. In 2019, he had 67. He likes to get, he likes to get out there and extend plays, get on the move. And if he sees any bit of green grass, he's taking it. And trust me, guys, scramble happy quarterbacks who have the skill that obviously Jaden Daniels does. They can really be a pain. First of all, scrambles, and I threw this out there earlier. The most efficient play in football right now is the quarterback scramble. The quarterback scramble is averaging 8.5 yards per play. They're averaging 9 yards per play on quarterback scrambles. It's the most efficient play right now in football. If you look at yards per attempt, Brock Purdy led the NFL in yards per attempt. I think he was a little over 9 yards per attempt, like 9.2 or 9.1 yards per attempt. The second place is Tua, 8.3 yards per attempt. So your second place quarterback in yards per attempt averaged 8.3. The average quarterback scramble averages 8.5 yards per play. It's really efficient. And the reason is because with quarterbacks who have a little bit more than functional mobility, even the guys that have functional mobility, which is every quarterback now, there are no more statues in the league. Tom Brady was one of the last ones. That's about it. Hell, CJ Stroud probably is one of the closest ones that it comes to being a statue in the pocket. Even Joe Burrow moves around with functional mobility. Every quarterback now has it. That's just the evolution of the position. But when you look at it overall, with these quarterbacks with functional mobility, they have the ability to initiate the scramble drill once the first play breaks down. I always basically say with these quarterbacks, you're defending 3 plays at times. 3 plays in one. There's the initial play that is called by the coordinator and the play caller on the sideline. And that play will last somewhere from 2 seconds to about 5 seconds. All right, depending on what the play is. If it is a run play, it doesn't last that long unless he breaks the play, and then it lasts a little bit longer, maybe 5 to 7 seconds if he breaks beyond the first level. But if it's a pass play, the initial play, it doesn't last that long. Gets to his progressions, probably takes him 4 to 5 seconds to get through all of his progressions if he makes it through all of his progressions before the pressure gets there and the pocket is collapsed. And so when that initial play breaks down, however it does, let's say there is a really good defensive coverage called and you've neutralized the initial play with your coverage. All the options are covered up and the pressure is collapsing the pocket. So success for the defense. Well, then he leaves the pocket and starts the scramble drill. scramble drill, which is baked into damn near every play, every passing play, because every wide receiver knows what to do. Once their initial route is exhausted, they start another route. They start the scramble drill, because then they start looking back at the quarterback. All right, did he scramble left? Did he scramble right? And they all literally have jobs. They have routes they're supposed to run, their second reaction routes based on what the scramble drill is. So I got to defend that too. This is when you're improvising, that because the defensive coverage is now dead too. Now you can still stick to it if you want to. This is why teams play a lot of pattern match, where you're playing zone until the route combinations declare themselves, and then you match the receivers in your zone, and it becomes a man coverage. So that when the second reaction play happens, I'm not just sitting covering nothing and covering a quarter of the field that nobody's in. Go find work. So that's why pattern match was one of the benefits, was it was able to defend the scramble drill a little bit better than just traditional zone coverage. So then I got to defend the scramble drill. And let's say I actually do a good job of defending the scramble drill. Let's say after this, now going into 6 and 7 seconds of this damn play, I'll defended the second reaction play, the scramble drill. Done a really good job with that. And now the quarterback has the third option on the play where he's going to pull it and just become a runner and scramble with his functional mobility. Sometimes it's Lamar Jackson. Sometimes it's Josh Allen. Sometimes it's Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes doesn't really scramble until the playoffs, but we've all seen it. And he can be deadly as a scrambling quarterback. So that's why scrambles are so effective and efficient, because by then the defense is exhausted. And I've been dropping back in coverage, defending the first pass play and then defending the scramble drill. Hell, by the time we get to the point where you're scrambling, I'm just struggling. You're scrambling. I'm struggling. I'm hoping to keep you to just say 7, 8. I'm happy to keep you to 7, 8 yards. I mean, that's why you average damn near 8.5 yards per scramble. And so with that being said, Jaden Daniels loves to scramble. The most efficient play in football is something that comes second nature to him. And by the way, a lot of coaches, Brian Dable was talking about this with Josh Allen. He encourages quarterbacks to scramble. He says, no, scramble, take it. He did that with Daniel Jones when he first got to New York. Scramble. Yeah, because, you know, we want the defense to have to account for it. And now you got to put a spy on him. And that spy can't drop back into coverage too far, so he's not going to help you in coverage. That spy can't overcommit to the line too much, because they can get caught up in the traffic, and then the quarterback is out on the edge. So that spy got to sit in no man's land. He's got to sit in purgatory. And his only job is to worry about the quarterback. And that still doesn't guarantee in the open field he's going to be able to tackle him. But that's his only job. So essentially, you've allocated resources to that. That's going to hurt your ability to cover and win the numbers advantage there, or to win the numbers advantage in the running game. Either way, you still put the defense at a disadvantage because they have to account for it. But on Jaden Daniels scrambles against Power 5 teams last year, LSU had a 27% explosive play rate. 27% explosive play rate when he scrambled. Wild. I'll go even deeper. How about this? When not targeting Malik Neighbors or Brian Thomas Jr., which were 2 first-round receivers, and when he didn't scramble, so not a target to his first-round wide receivers and not a scramble, LSU's offense had an explosive play rate of 6%. But when he either threw it to those 2 guys, targeted those 2 guys, or he scrambled, 28% explosive play rate. So LSU, all they had to do, if they targeted either of those 2 first-round receivers, or he decided to scramble, they had explosive play, which is like a 15-yard play or a 10-yard run, 28% of the time. But if they didn't, it dropped down to 6%. That is a huge difference. So, but my point is, they got receivers at Washington. He's got receivers there with him now, and he's going to be scrambling a lot because their offensive line ain't great. Just keep that in mind, Cowboys, and plan accordingly. Let's talk about the Eagles real quick, and then we'll get to the break, and then we can finish our discussion in Rod's rant. Something's going on with the Eagles. There are multiple reports comes from Jeremy Fowler and McManus. They had a story about the rift, a schism that is developing in the locker room between Jalen Hurts and between Nick Sirianni. Several sources, this is Tim McManus and Jeremy Fowler, several sources detail a prolonged strain between Hurts and Sirianni during the 2023 season, differences in offensive philosophy, Hurts apparently would instruct, and he and AJ Brown admitted this even to the media. They admitted that they would change plays. They would change some of the plays that Nick Sirianni sent in. If they didn't like the play or didn't think it was appropriate, they would change it. And that's big. That's something big to admit. Like I said, they admitted it to the media, and this was actually last year. They admitted that to the media. Brown revealed he and Hurts improvised. They call it improvise, and went on our own. So he didn't say they called it on plays, but he implies it with went on our own, and we improvised play calls. While sources with knowledge of the situation say it did not happen all the time, it was a prime example of Hurts deviating from the script. If he didn't like it, he's like, man, I'm changing it. He said, my butt's on the line. My legacy's on the line. And I think he was empowered by that contract too. You know what I mean? You sign big deal, you're empowered, you're the guy, you're the man. All right, that kind of thing. And I think that also was a part of so. And I've said it before. I think, first of all, I think it's frustration on the part of Jalen Hurts. He's frustrated. His career as a high level quarterback, college or pro. He's had now, Kellen Moore will be his 11th offensive coordinator and play caller. 11th. He's had 11 of them. Basically, every damn year he has a new play calling coordinator. And you know what these guys want to do? They want to bring in their system. They want to run their system with their terminology. And then there's a trial and error period of, this doesn't work. So let's do this. And they're experimenting with this. And think about how frustrating it is for Jalen Hurts to go, guys, I know what works. I've been doing this now a long time. I know all these offenses. I know you guys have your own, specificities and your own terminology, but the truth is conceptually, they're all pretty much similar. And I think at this point, he wants to become a game executive and have his own offense, and not necessarily he's building the offense from the ground up. But there are certain basic core principles that every coordinator or play caller that is going to be in charge of, the offense that he is the quarterback of, that they have to abide by. You have to do these things. This helps me as a quarterback, helps me process, helps me to be the best version of myself as a quarterback. And I think part of that is the protection. Now, he's admitted, he said this to the media, that 95% of the install with Kellen Moore is new inventory. That's a lot, by the way. He said 95% of the Eagles offense has new inventory, which means everything's going to look a little different. And we also know now he is setting new protections. Now that Kelsey has retired, Jason Kelsey retired, he's going to be in charge of safety and protection. That was the responsibility of the center. Now it's going to be his responsibility, which, by the way, he wants. There's also an excerpt in that same article that said, last year with the playoffs approaching and obviously Jalen Hurts trying to improve by any means necessary, he made an unusual move. He called former Giants defensive coordinator Wink Martindale, who's now the Michigan defensive coordinator. He called him because he had parted ways with the Giants following Week 18. And Wink Martindale said, quote, "I've been doing this for 40 years. And it's the first time I've had an opposing quarterback call me up. I thought it was pretty cool that the guy called. It shows you what kind of pro he really is. He's just looking at every angle that he can to get better." The phone call lasted about half an hour. Martindale told ESPN they discussed weaknesses in Philadelphia's protection and how New York tried to game plan him. Nobody's more blitz happy than Wink Martindale. So it was about protection. And now he's in charge of the protection. So he's calling opposing defensive coordinators because he's worried about their protection issues, which that is his safety, right? He's now the big money quarterback, the franchise quarterback. And he's worried about, hey, man, am I protected? And you know what? If I am going to be the guy whose butt is on the line, I want to be able to set my own protections as a quarterback. Now he can do that. Now he's doing that. But last year, there may have been a little bit of a frustration in that locker room with him and Sirianni about that particular topic. So I think Kellen Moore is going to give him more latitude and going to give him more power to call his own plays and audible his own plays. He's going to set his own protections. Guys, he's trying to become a game executive. He's tired of offensive coordinators coming in there and telling him what to run. Because he's like, guys, I've been doing this a long time now. And I've talked to and I've had experience with a lot of different offensive coordinators and a lot of different offenses, and they're all basically the same conceptually, guys. None of y'all are reinventing the wheel. I hate to tell you. Your terminology is different. What you're trying to achieve, your belief system is a little different, but your offense is all the same. And now I want my offense. Just like Brady had his own offense, just like Peyton Manning had his own offense, Aaron Rodgers has his own offense, Nathaniel Hackett's just a curator of the offense, but he has his own offense. Patrick Mahomes, you think when Andy Reid leaves that Patrick Mahomes is going to run some other dude's offense? No, it's going to be Patrick Mahomes' offense. He's probably always his offense right now. That's why they drafted wide receivers and they're bringing in more wide receivers. Why? Because Patrick Mahomes said, I want to go deep. I want the vertical element back in my offense. They drafted Clyde Edwards-Helaire because he wanted a Clyde Edwards-Helaire type running back. Was he a great draft pick? Hell no. But Patrick Mahomes wants it. Patrick Mahomes going to get it. So some of these guys are trying to become executives of their own offenses. And I think that's what Jalen Hurts is trying to achieve. That's why he's butting heads with Nick Sirianni. And as a guy, if you're going to pay your quarterback that kind of money, I want you to rise to that executive level. So Philly fans should be happy about it. Will it work? I don't know. But I like the move by Jalen Hurts to try to take more ownership of his legacy and hit the offense that he's running. Because his entire career, he's been he's been kind of the victim of so much turnover. And I think at one point it stunted his development. Now it's almost empowered him because he has such an expansive knowledge of football. All right, there you go. So that's what's going on in the division, the NFC East. We'll talk about the AFC South a little bit and also get into the Pittsburgh Steelers and their unsteeler-like offseason so far. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Local and Rod Davis coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get into Rod's rant of the day. I want to talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll get to the Texans here in a second. I'll get to the AFC South in a second. I don't know what's happening with the Steelers. I'll admit there's something going on. I'm a big Mike Tomlin fan. Love me some Mike Tomlin. I think he's a Hall of Fame coach. There's no question about that. But just the other day, I went on this long rant, as I often do, about how some teams in the NFL have drawn a line in the sand as it relates to the wide receiver position. And they've chosen to reset their wide receiver room rather than re-up their wide receivers and pay them top of the market money. And those teams were Kansas City was like that, Green Bay was like that, and Pittsburgh was like that. Just not willing to spend first round draft capital on wide receivers. They'd rather build through the draft in the second round, maybe even the third round, second through fourth round, kind of being a sweet spot for them. Pittsburgh Steelers have drafted 24 wide receivers since 2000, and only one first rounder out of those 24, one first rounder. But if you go look at early round picks, second rounders, they have 6 second rounders. And by the way, there's basically the second rounders have all come, most of them have come in the last like 8 years. George Pickens was a second rounder in 2022. Chase Claypool, second rounder. Deontay Johnson, second rounder. James Washington, second rounder in 2018. Juju Smith-Schuster was a second rounder in 2017. So they've really settled on second rounder being our sweet spot. So for them to go after Brandon Ayuk with a first round, and not only spending a first round pick to get him, but then pay him top of the market money, just very un-Steeler-like. And also to go after a diva wide receiver is very un-Steeler-like because he's a bit of a diva, right? He likes to go on social media and voice his concerns on social media. He likes the drama to play out on social media. He's put out several videos talking about the negotiations with the 49ers, how the 49ers don't want him, and how he want to go to Washington, and all these kind of things. So he's a diva too. And usually the Pittsburgh Steelers, whether it's a Antonio Brown or when you're talking about Santonio Holmes, they don't like diva wide receivers. I even when what was his name? Mike Wallace. Even he was kind of a diva wide receiver for one time, and they were like, nope, we're moving on from him. They don't like diva wide receivers, and yet they're going to bring in a diva wide receiver. And I know it's been a while since they've had an open quarterback spot because of Ben Roethlisberger and the consistency they had there. But even an open quarterback competition doesn't seem like the Pittsburgh Steelers, but everybody's got to deal with that when you don't have a consistent franchise quarterback. But the way that Mike Tomlin's handling the quarterback competition, that to me is very un-Steeler-like because he's almost treating it like it's an open audition in the way he's talking about it. Because they put out a depth chart. But even the way that he's handling it, they put out a depth chart, and on the depth chart, I believe it says Russell Wilson is the starting quarterback. But he's gonna sit Russell Wilson for the first preseason game, and I believe Justin Fields is going to play for like the first 3 series or so. And he's all, you know what? We'll play the audio from Mike Tomlin. I don't want to give too much away. We'll play the audio from Mike Tomlin. Then we'll come back and discuss it. Here is Mike Tomlin being asked about the quarterback competition.
Would you still categorize this as a quarterback competition? If it is, how do you weight what happens on the practice field here versus what happens in the stadium?
Very much is a competition. What happens in stadium is weighted heavier than what happens in a practice setting because it's more game-like.
Do you still view Russell as having that pole position and being ahead of Justin in that?
You guys saw the depth chart that I released yesterday. That is real.
So, okay. So he's saying game reps matter more than practice reps.
Yeah.
And Russell Wilson is the starter based on the unofficial depth chart that was given. But Russell Wilson won't play in the preseason game. I think it's because he's got a calf or something like that. They want to keep their eye on. But Justin Fields is going to play. And he's basically telling you if Justin Fields shows out in the game, Justin Fields could easily take the starting job. He's basically letting everybody know it's an open audition for Justin Fields. Because the game reps are going to matter more than the practice reps. And so he's definitely not giving full support to Russell Wilson here. So I guess I'm not used to seeing the Steelers in an open quarterback competition or audition like this. But the way Mike Tomlin is playing it is entertaining. I can say that. I think he's just he wants to see somebody take the job. And that right now, he doesn't want to give the job to anybody. And I think right now the job is kind of being given to Russell Wilson, and he doesn't like that. He wants somebody to take the damn job. Take the job. Well, I don't want to have to announce who the starting quarterback is. Everybody should see who the starting quarterback is. Oh, it's that guy. That guy's better than this guy. He doesn't want to have to go in there and state, oh, this is the starting quarterback and for these reasons.
No, and I think you've talked about it a lot, at least at Texas, but the locker room deciding the starter. Yep. If you sit and you go, man, I got 2 quarterbacks, and the locker room doesn't want either one of them. That's a problem.
That is a problem.
So there may be an issue in, man, one of you go prove to the locker room that you're the guy that gets this team excited and wants to come play for you, or else what are we going to do? Because we've basically since Ben Roethlisberger not had that guy that this team is excited to go play for. And people want to go out there and play for it, so you need to get that excitement up. But I mean, it feels as if, we know that the Steelers were letting Mike Tomlin go on that last end of the year of the contract, and then they finally re-upped him, right? Mm-hmm. It feels like there was a come to Jesus meeting at some point with him and Omar Khan and maybe the ownership, where they all sat down together and said, hey, we've been kind of beating our head against the wall doing this the Steelers way, and that's great. We have not won a playoff game since 2016. And, we had a Debo wide receiver then. We had some of these things then, and we don't have any of those now. We're trying to do this, the Mike Tomlin way and do this a very hard-nosed way. But if we don't have any of those guys, we can't compete at the highest levels because every other major team does. Yeah. Every other team has those guys. They're dealing with those issues. So maybe we have to change up what we're doing and bring in and try and stir it up in the quarterback room. And maybe we have to try and bring in another wide receiver and pay these guys. We have to change things up because what we're doing isn't we're winning regular season games. We're competing there. But once we get to the playoffs, we have not been winning games.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. It's a good point about the something shifted. It seemed like something's
definitely shifted. And I mean, like Omar Khan, the GM, has been there for 20 years now, something like that.
No, they've been around, but you're right. I think the mindset, maybe you're right that somebody talked to him about, hey guys, we've talked about this too, right? He's never had a losing season there. But when was the last time you won a playoff game? And what's the Steelers standard now? Is the Steelers standard now just no losing seasons? Ugh.
Yeah.
I mean, like that's what the Steelers standard is now. That is a precipitous drop.
Yeah, and I mean, when your standard is, man, that last game of the season, does Tomlin keep his win streak alive and win season alive? It's not where you want to be.
No,
you want to go back in to be winning divisions and winning, and the rest of the division is passed you by now, and you're still winning in the division. But talking about playoff success and media, coverage, and who's getting on TV and who are people excited to see. The rest of the division's getting more of that than you are.
And that's the great point, though, about the rest of the division, though, because you actually have had success winning your division, not winning division, but winning within the division and in that ecosystem. But once you're outside of it, those teams have more success than you do outside the division, and you are not achieving outside that division. So Tomlin's a hell of a coach, and he'll figure it out. But I'm with you. They need to take it to another level. And I think it's going to start at quarterback, and we'll see if Russell Wilson or Justin Fields can be that guy. All right, real quick, because I know we're up against it. I want to point this out. The Titans have built something really unique defensively. Just go look at the pieces they've acquired over the offseason. L'Jarius Sneed, best bump and run corner in the NFL by far. Like, I don't even think it's actually even close. Quandre Diggs. He is a DB that can play any position in secondary, can play slot corner, nickel, can play strong safety, free safety, play corner for you. That is an asset. Jamal Adams, who is essentially a hybrid linebacker that also can play in the secondary. You have T'Vondre Sweat. T'Vondre Sweat is now the biggest defensive tackle in all of the NFL. These really unique outliers can really cause problems for an offense, especially if you have a defensive coordinator, and they have one now. Denard Wilson is their new defensive coordinator, and first time calling plays as a defensive coordinator. If you got somebody that has a vision for how to weaponize these hybrid pieces and these pieces with multiplicity, you really can bring some exotic presentations and you really can have a solutions oriented defense, very malleable, that can adjust and be a defense that has kind of some hybridized concepts in it that allow you to never be at a true matchup disadvantage, because you can always shift some things around and most things around. So your rules are more flexible to your defense. So if your rules are more rigid, then you can an opponent can learn those rules and then violate the structural integrity of your defense. But if your rules are flexible, then they may not even know the rules. It's hard for the offense to learn where your rules are because they're not that rigid. You're shifting and motioning, and you're as malleable as the offense is. That's what makes it really tough on an offense to try to engineer a matchup advantage. All right, there you go. So Titans doing some interesting things.
Well, real quick though, we'll say if you want to be excited about Quandre Diggs going to the Titans, that Denard Wilson, their DC, has taken Jamal Adams as a DB safety to the All-Pro. He has taken C.J. Gardner-Johnson, led the NFL in put him to safety and led the NFL in interceptions, and then took Kyle Hamilton last year to being an All-Pro. He has done a lot with safeties.
Yeah, Kyle Hamilton had a hell of a year, and I remember that move for C.J. Gardner-Johnson.
Yeah,
and that was a brilliant move. It actually made his career.
So
after that,
so excited about what Quandre Diggs may do there.
That's a good point. And he's got, like you just pointed out, history with Jamal Adams, so he knows exactly how to use his very unique skill set. You got a lot of unique skill sets.
Yeah.
Some coaches don't like that. It seems like they are coveting that unique element, those outliers. All right. Good stuff there, Patrick. We come back. We'll have Who Said That? That's when Patrick plays pieces of audio from the sports world, sometimes beyond the sports world, and based on the context clues or the familiarity of the voice, hopefully you can identify and recall who said that. We'll have that when we come back right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the horn. See, this is what you're doing the robot with the breakdancing, right? Yeah. Man, some pop locking. Uh-huh.
Some Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five.
Yeah, this is definitely the breakdancing vibe. There's no doubt. This is nothing but break. That makes me want to break dance a little bit right there.
Get the cardboard. Nice. Get the cardboard.
Get the cardboard out. New Theme Thursday. That is my man Patrick coming up with the creative themes. And New Theme Thursday for this particular Thursday is all about celebrating the breakdancing competition at these Olympic Games. So all of the songs are songs that you usually would hear when you were gonna get into a breakdancing session, or you went to a party where somebody was breakdancing. We're not sure how the breakdancing competition in the Olympics. We're not sure what type of music they're going to be using. Maybe it is the old school music. Maybe it's some new school stuff. I don't know what kind of new breakdancing music they have, but I'm sure they're going to be playing it and jamming it at the Olympics. So tomorrow they'll start the breakdancing competition, and I believe the last hour of our show we'll have some play-by-play coverage of it, because Patrick and I will be watching the breakdancing competition and giving you guys some of the details about it. So thanks to Patrick for his creative themes. We appreciate that. We also appreciate him hooking up the topic for the Big Fat Poll of the day. It's already posted on the X account at the Horn ATX. Patrick wants to know how many 300-yard rushers will Texas have this season. And right now, 42% of you are voting on 3. The Texas will have 3, at least 3 300-yard rushers. I'm at 2. I think they'll have 2. That's the 33% of you are saying 2, along with myself. All right, let's get right to it. It's time for Who Said That. That's when we play pieces of audio, sometimes from the sports world, sometimes beyond the sports world. And based on the familiarity of the voice, or based on context clues, hopefully you can identify and recall who said that.
I think every situation's different. You got to be careful sort of copying and pasting last year's answer to this year's situation. So, we're excited about AD, and we're going to let him get a bunch of reps in a bunch of different situations. But shoot, Alex played a bunch of good football too. We're gonna make sure and sort of let those guys all rep it out and try to go get open versus our DBs who are going to make it tough on them, and sort of see what's best for the Colts, man. Let's go get a bunch of reps. We'll figure a bunch out in training camp. So it's not, like I said, I'm always careful to not just do what we did the year before in a different spot or a different situation. Each year's a little bit different.
All right. Who said that? That was, I love this name, Jim Bob Cooter.
He sounds like a Jim Bob Cooter.
Yes, he does. He lives up to that name. The Colts OC talking about the competition. Everybody's releasing unofficial depth charts. We were talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers one. We talked about the Cowboys unofficial depth chart. The Colts released an unofficial depth chart, and AD Mitchell is listed as a slash or an or by his name with Alec Pierce. So basically, they're battling it out for the starting wide receiver position still. That's what he's talking about. So I think AD Mitchell's going to win it, though.
Let's go get some reps.
Get some reps. But I think AD Mitchell's going to win the job. I've seen a lot of spectacular plays by him on social media. And if it's close, tie goes to the younger guy. Everybody knows that. That's football 101. Yeah. It shouldn't be close.
He's got
you've been here in this system. It shouldn't be close. If it's close, that means AD Mitchell's going to surpass you.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah. So, all right, great stuff, Patrick. As always, brother, you knocked it out of the park. You're the real MVP. Thanks everybody out there for listening. Remember, the revolution will not be televised. We're talking about it right here on the Rodcast. We love you guys. We mean that. Take care of yourselves, but more importantly, take care of each other. Tomorrow we'll be back, same time, same channel. In the meantime, hook 'em and peace.